Ladies and gentlemen, I hereby call the December 4th, 2017 special town meeting of the town of Acton to order. This is going to be an interesting evening. We have a large number of people still waiting in line, but I polled them and virtually all of them were in line after 7 o'clock, so I think it is still appropriate to start the meeting. We will hopefully try to take care of business as rapidly as possible, but also ensuring that all voices are heard. This evening we have 11 articles and associated motions to consider. Many of the motions require a 2/3 majority. We had hoped to do that entirely by electronic voting. We will not be able to do so because of the turnout has exceeded the number of clickers. So we'll be doing a combination of electronic voting and also hand counted by tellers with cards that have been handed out. Just of interest to me, how many of you are here this evening, at least here in the auditorium, for the first time at a town meeting? That is a very significant number. Very significant number. Let me just review a few rules of the road before we do a couple of very quick tests of our electronic voting system. Please ensure that your cell phones are silenced. Computers and other electronic devices are allowed as long as they're on silent. Wi-Fi information was provided on the screen ahead of town meeting. My job as moderator is to preside over town meeting and to make sure that town meeting is fair, open, and civil. Civility is not an option. I expect that everyone will be listened to in a respectful fashion, and speakers are expected to direct their comments to me, the moderator, and not at individuals. While we may disagree about issues, let's not be disagreeable with one another. Furthermore, one part of being civil is that I expect no applause and no booing during the discussion of motions. On my part, I will do my best to exercise good faith, and I intend my actions to be reasonable and fair. Parliamentary procedure at town meeting is governed by Mass General Law. Town meeting time, which is this little blue book that you may have seen me and Town Council referring to earlier this evening. It's a handbook of parliamentary processes prepared by the Mass Moderators Association, something that only town councils and moderators, I think, probably read. It is also covered, town meeting processes are also covered by our town charter, town bylaws, and perhaps most significantly, past practice. Many of these rules and procedures are described beginning at page 34 of your warrant, and more detail is provided on the town website. I've tried to make as much information available to town meeting members ahead of the meeting as possible. PowerPoint presentations were made available on the website at the end of last week. To ensure an efficient town meeting, it is incumbent on the presenters to make succinct, clear presentations. I met with them on Saturday to go over their presentations to try to accomplish that goal. And it is also important that you, the voters, be prepared by reviewing the warrant and other information ahead of town meeting. You should all have a copy of the warrant, which is our agenda for town meeting this evening, but what we actually discuss are motions. It is important that you listen to and read the motion as it will be shown on the screen, and it is what you will be voting on. At the pre-town meeting last Saturday, presenters generally indicated they would take between 4 and 8 minutes in giving their presentations. The first one I've allotted up to 12 minutes because there is a 4-minute video included in the presentation. Recommendations by the selectmen, the FinCom, and other town boards are limited to 2 minutes, and after the initial presentations on each motion, I will open it up for questions and debate among town meeting members. As you may have observed, we have the usual pro and con mics. Please use the pro mic if you're in favor of the motion and vice versa. If you have questions, and questions are always appreciated, you may use any mic. We also have a portable mic, I believe, although that may have been lost in some of the movement that went around earlier. If you cannot make it to a mic, you can try to request a portable mic, and I think we can accommodate that. I will recognize speakers as they stand to the microphones. Although I may know you personally, I will simply refer to you as the speaker at microphone number whatever, so those whom I do not know personally will not feel slighted. And frankly, also, it makes it easier for our audiovisual and TV folks to know which microphone to focus the camera on. Please keep your comments limited to no more than 2 minutes, keep the debate on point, and to ensure fairness to all and to keep the meeting moving at an efficient pace. We have timers. We'll aid everyone in knowing when the time has elapsed, and they should be visible to everyone. It is also appropriate for citizens to call the question when there has been ample opportunity for all sides to be heard and when town meeting members perceive that comments are becoming repetitious. I think it's important for you to know who else is sitting up here on the stage. Jenna Dadachi is the chair of the Board of Selectmen. Will you introduce the folks at the 2 tables here on my right?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. To my right is Katie Green, our vice chairman this year. Next to her is Joan Gardner, our clerk, and next to Joan is Peter Barry. And finally, at the end, Ching Sung Chang. Oh, am I supposed to? I better remember
how
who's
about the folks behind you?
Okay, and hidden in the dark, where I think some of us would like to be. On the right here is Town Manager Steve Ledoux. And next to him is Town Council Nina Pickering-Cook. And then finally, on the other end of the table is our Town Clerk, Eva Skiratic.
Thank you. Steve Noon is the chair of the Finance Committee over here on my left. Steve, would you introduce the members of the Finance Committee?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. On my right is Jason Cole, our vice chair. To my immediate left is Dave Wellinghoff, the clerk, and then Bob Evans, Mike Majors, Roland Borden. Somebody's going to have to lean back. Jeff Burgart, John Benson, Tom Farley, Christine Russell, and Christy Anderson.
Thank you, Steve. I would also note that there are various members of town staff here. They work hard. I doubt they're getting paid overtime this evening. My understanding is that there may be from time to time presenters who may defer questions to them. Some of these town staff members are not residents of Acton, and so it is important that we vote to allow non-residents to speak. In addition, we will have one presentation later this evening, which will be given by a business owner who is also not a resident in Acton. To speed the process, I would ask the town meeting vote now to allow any town staff member who is not a resident, as well as Bob Carr and Ashley Esper of Nature's Remedy, to be allowed to speak at special town meeting this evening. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. The vote carries. Let's turn now quickly to electronic voting before we move to Article 1. First of all, I have been told that there may have inadvertently been some of the overflow room clickers, which are marked with a CAF on them, that may have been handed out to people who are in the auditorium. So if you would check your clicker, and I believe this is on the top of the clicker, if you have one that says CAF, would you please raise your hand and we will see that you get the correct clicker. The clickers in this room operate on a different frequency than those in the overflow room, which is why this is important. So keep your hands raised. I'm going to continue talking a little bit about how we do electronic voting. Although this evening, as I indicated earlier, we will be doing a combination of electronic voting and also teller-counted votes. Also, because we're in the overflow situation that we are, we will be doing all votes in that manner. We will not be doing any voice votes, other than the one we just did. Snuck that one by you, didn't I? We've got a couple more people raising their hands with clickers. The clicker that you have in your hand is battery powered, has an orange on-off button, has several keys numbered A through E, and a display, except for the few that people may have which have Braille labels. When we vote, we will only be using 2 keys, the A key and the E key. The A key is for a yes vote. The E key is for a no vote. Because these systems are used for a multitude of purposes, that's the reason why they have a multitude of buttons, even though we only use 2. A few rules governing the use of the clickers. As much as you might like, you may not take them home this evening. You'll have to turn them off at the end of the evening and turn them in when you leave. They are pre-programmed and tested by our IT staff to ensure proper operation. You should keep the clicker with you at all times in the auditorium and only turn it in when you are instructed, only turn it on when so instructed. If you need to leave the auditorium during the meeting, for example, to use the bathroom, you must bring the clicker with you and have it checked at the door. You will be given a card that you will then turn back when you return to the auditorium and receive your clicker back. To protect the integrity of the voting, you will not be allowed to leave the auditorium for whatever reason unless you turn in your clicker. Basically, we don't want you leaving it behind and letting someone else vote with your clicker. When I determine that a vote by electronic means is required, which I suspect will be each vote tonight, I will announce that and the motion slide will be put up on the screen. The voting window will be open for 25 seconds and I will instruct voters to press gently first the orange button that will turn your clicker on. The word ready should show in the display indicating the power is on. Then I will ask everyone if they have their clickers ready and on. If there are difficulties, raise your hand and we will have tellers as well as the IT department folks available to assist you. Once everyone has their clickers on and are ready to go, I will state that we're ready to open the voting window for 25 seconds. The timers will be visible. Voters will have 25 seconds to cast their votes. You vote A for yes, E for no. If you wish to abstain, simply do not press any button, or you can also, if you have voted, for example, yes or A and then change your mind within that 25 seconds, simply push the B, C, or D key and that will cancel your vote. Only the A and E votes will be counted. If the vote is interrupted for some reason during the 25-second window, we will stop the vote, deal with the interruption, and then resume voting. We will not start all over again. So if you have already voted, you do not have to do anything. At the end of the 25-second voting window, I will announce the window is closed. For those few of you who may have elected not to use a clicker, and I don't believe there are many in this room, but there obviously are some who have been given a card, those votes will be tallied by the tellers. They will be added to the tallies from the clickers, and we will see the results produced and provided to us by the IT department who are down here in front. And by law, I will announce the vote result. Have we been able to take care of all of the mishandled or mislabeled clickers? I believe we have. I don't see anyone else raising their hand. I should note very quickly, we have several people who are interested in this process of electronic voting from Concord this evening. I welcome them. We have moderator Carmen Reese and several other people here this evening, so thank you. We'll hope this works smoothly. We're certainly going to put the system to a great test tonight. Let's do a couple of practice votes just to make sure everybody's ready, and then we'll get started with Article 1. So, can we have the first practice motion placed up on the screen? I think we should have that. While we're putting that up on the screen, and if, okay, there we go. You may turn on your clicker. This is a very simple, straightforward motion, which is, do you approve of the use of electronic voting? I would ask that everybody turn their clickers on by pressing the orange button. Is everybody ready? Okay, we'll open the voting window for 25 seconds. You may cast your vote. By the way, we're doing just the testing of electronic voting, so those folks in the other room, you don't have to worry if you're... Well, okay, this is why we test this system. What's that mean?
I think everybody hit the button at once, and it freaked it out. We just need to kind of, perhaps, I don't know if there's a way to spread it out just a little bit.
Wow. Okay. Let's Excuse me, let's try this again. We're going to reset, and we're going to do this just a little bit differently. I'm told that everybody pressed simultaneously, and you kind of blew the system. So the way we're going to do this, at least in the auditorium, see if this works, is those folks in the section on the right, your voting window is open. Please cast your vote. Those over here do not yet. You cast your votes. Now the folks in the middle, please cast your votes. And finally, the folks over here on my left, your right, please cast your votes. See if this works. We do have one question down here, if someone can. We have one question down here, if someone has a problem, or? We still have at least one person who's got a problem. You mean? I'm told also if you get the no base message, you press the what appears to be either green or blue button, that will reset it. So then you will get a vote. I'm now going to try to communicate with Joanne Barry, who is our assistant moderator, who is in the other room. Joanne, are you there?
Yes, we are.
Ah, awesome.
It's going,
Are you having any problems in there?
we are not having bass either. No bass here.
Okay. While we're waiting to try to solve this technological glitch, I would ask, are there people in the auditorium here who do not have clickers? Do you have instead just a voting card? Are there any of you? One. Aren't you lucky? Charlie, I think you can count that one, right? I do appreciate everyone's good humor already this evening. It's well into a couple hours, and we need to keep moving here. So let's see if we can solve this technological problem, and if not, then I'm going to move directly to Article 1. I recognize the person at microphone number 3. I think you have something to say.
True. So in the interest of the time for the voters, I know we started very late due to some unforeseen situation. There are many voters here who are particularly here for Article 5 and 6. I request if Article 5 and 6 can be moved right after Article 1.
Is that a motion?
Yes. Yes.
Do I hear a second? Okay. The motion has, please, the motion has been made and seconded. The motion is to take Articles 5 and 6 up directly after Article 1, if I understood that.
Yes.
Would you like to speak any more to your motion?
there are people who are here, many people who are deeply involved in Article 1, of course, because we have children who go to school and we are very passionate about it. We are also very passionate about Article 5 and 6. I can't say that all are in favor or against, but there are people who are against having marijuana stores in Acton. And there are mostly the people who have younger kids, and as you know, the babysitting has been extended for 9:30, but there are kids who are at home, and those people cannot stay here beyond 10 o'clock, considering tomorrow is a school day, and the kids have to wake up at 6:30, and we have to go. So in the interest of all those voters who have made the effort to be here to vote against marijuana, please give them a chance.
Apparently, you all weren't listening when I gave my introductory remarks about no applause. I'll let that one pass, but we will conduct this meeting more efficiently if we refrain from that. Do the Board of Selectmen have a comment on the motion?
Could I just caucus among my
Certainly.
colleagues quickly? Thank you.
Ms. Adachi?
Yes, Mr. Moderator, there are three votes for no and 2 for yes on our board.
So you do not recommend
We do not
passage of the
recommend.
motion?
No.
Thank you. Finance Committee have a position on this motion?
No, we don't.
Thank you. I will open it up to debate. This is a debatable motion, but I would encourage people to be brief if anyone wishes to debate this motion. I see no one, please, I'm fully capable of running this meeting. Thank you. I see no one standing, so we will take a vote. However, I'm waiting to see whether we're going to be able to do this electronically or not.
Peter? Could I have Peter? Peter?
I'm sorry, Joanne? Yeah.
Yes, there is a voter wishing to speak in this room.
Go right ahead.
Okay, I'm Ruth Lull at 123 Summer Street, Acton. And just to state the obvious, there may be others of us here tonight, including myself, who feel very passionate about other about other articles. And I would really prefer that we didn't change the voting order. I came here specifically for Article 2, and I can't come the rest of the week, nor can my husband. I know that sounds selfish, but we all have our own agenda. So that's my thought.
Thank you. Are we ready? Are we ready or capable to do this vote electronically? I am told that we are. So we will try this. Everyone, please turn on your clickers. Joanne, you have folks in your room doing the same, I assume?
Yes?
Okay. I will open the voting window, and again, we're going to do this segment by segment by segment. So those folks, at least on the right-hand side of the auditorium, the voting window is open. Please cast your vote. I'm sorry. This is a majority vote. The motion is to move Articles 5 and 6 ahead of Article 2. So we would vote first on Article 1, and then we would move directly to Article 5 and 6. That is the motion. So if you want to do that, you vote yes. If you don't want to do that, please vote no. I ask that the section on my right vote first. I ask that the section in the center now cast their votes. And I would ask now that the section on my left cast their votes, please.
So why don't we electronically do the same? Start over here. Okay. Yes, they did it below. Has everyone who's got a clicker cast their vote? Yes.
And the same is true in this room. Now we have folks in the overflow room who do not have clickers who need to be counted by the tellers who are in that room.
Yes. They are proceeding to that vote now. If you got a check, if a check showed up.
So we have one in this room. Oh, he has a clicker now. Does anyone else in this room not have a clicker, only a voting card? I don't see anyone, so we're good. Yes, if you're ready to do so, please post the vote, including the teller-counted vote as well as the electronic votes. And this is not the motion that's on the screen, by the way. I understand your confusion. Joanne, I'm told that there are people in the second overflow room that also need to be teller counted.
The second overflow room is where the teller-counted vote is happening. Everyone in the
Okay.
first overflow has clickers. The second
Okay.
overflow do not
Okay,
have
I just want to make sure everybody's vote is being
clickers.
tabulated.
Yes, and that vote is, oh, and there's a few out here, okay. So that vote is being taken as we speak.
While we're tabulating the vote on whether to move Articles 5 and 6 up, I see no reason why we can't go ahead and at least put Article 1 into play. Therefore, I have instructed the folks to put the motion for Article 1 up on the screen, and we will start with Article 1. And Mr. Bruce will assemble his troops down here. Go. I will read the motion. Mr. Bruce moves that the town hereby approves the appropriation of $1,300,000 from certified excess and deficiency funds of the Acton-Boxborough Regional School District for the purpose of paying the costs of a feasibility study and schematic design relating to the C.T. Douglas Elementary School Statement of Interest, including the payment of all costs incidental or related thereto, the study, close paren, and for which the district may be eligible for a school construction grant from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, MSBA, close paren, said amount to be expended at the discretion of the district's school building committee, that the town acknowledges that the MSBA's grant program is a non-entitlement discretionary program based on need as determined by the MSBA, and any study costs the district incurs in excess of any grant approved by and received from the MSBA shall be the sole responsibility of the district and its member municipalities, provided further that any grant that the district may receive from the MSBA for the study shall be as set forth in the feasibility study agreement that may be executed between the district and MSBA. Do I hear a second? The motion has been made and seconded. Mr. Bruce, you are the mover. I think you probably, before you start your presentation, would like to introduce the members of the school building committee at your left, which you may do, and then you may begin your presentation.
I would, Mr. Moderator. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen of town meeting, thank you for this evening. I'd like to make an introduction to the Acton-Boxborough Regional School Building Committee. To my left, the interim superintendent, William McAuliffe, J.D. Head, who is our director of school operations, Marie Altieri, who is our deputy superintendent, Chris Whitbeck, who is the principal at the Douglas School, and Katie Raymond, who is a resident of Acton, Bob Evans, member of the FinCom, Peter Berry, member of the Board of Selectmen, Dave Verdolino, who is our finance director at the region, and Jason Cole, who is a member of the FinCom. So I'd like to start off again with the warrant and then a video. Work great in practice, I gotta tell you.
Welcome to Douglas School. On the first floor, we have a small conference room and storage. The entrance to the conference room is through a reading instruction room. Here in the conference room, we have most of our special education meetings. This space is densely packed and less than appropriate for parent meetings. The storage area.
Yep. Thank you.
An astute observation. Seems the technology gremlins are hard at work this evening.
Concord is so impressed right now.
I know.
It's unbelievable.
I know.
They're sitting there waiting to sell their house and move right in.
Welcome to Douglas School.
Chris, you're like the voice of God over there.
Welcome to Douglas School.
I'm just gonna.
Mr. Bruce, if you want to just go with the rest of your presentation and maybe they can get the video up and running by the end.
That would be fine, Mr. Moderator. Let me just go through.
Welcome to Douglas School.
Just can't get it. That's fine. I can't. All right. Okay.
I think I know the next words, yes.
Yeah. No, I know. Let's go. No. There's no video.
The entrance to the conference room is through a reading instruction room. Here in the conference room, we have most of our special education meetings. This space is densely packed and less than appropriate for parent meetings. The storage area houses all of our curricular supplies and janitorial materials. It is a dirt-floored area with sewage pipes that you must duck under to get from one part to another, creating hazards for all that enter. Our counselor's office is a modified large storage closet. It is just enough space for the 3 adults who work in here with children. The Douglas School Library is in one of our 2 newest modulars. It is 11 years old. Because of space limitations, our shelves of books go up higher than traditional shelves. This makes it very difficult for younger students to get books. The Douglas School Gymnasium is a 3/4 size gym that is heavily used every period of the day. It has non-adjustable basketball hoops and a heating system that is very difficult to regulate. Our cafetorium serves our 400 students lunch and is used for assemblies as well. The stage is non-handicapped accessible. The cafeteria is designed for only 250 students and makes for a very densely packed assembly area. The entrance to our 22-year-old art, music, and special ed modulars is through the back of the cafeteria. The art room sink is on the outside of the art room down the hall. The art room is a carpeted space, very difficult to clean, and again, very densely packed, making group work and projects a challenge. The Douglas School has a beautiful set of playing fields that adjoin with the Gates School via a boardwalk through our wetlands. Unfortunately, the playing fields are completely handicapped inaccessible because of their proximity to a hill. There's a ramp to the playgrounds, but the steep incline makes it unusable. Each classroom, K-2, has an outside entrance to the playgrounds. Unfortunately, these two are handicapped inaccessible, and lack of storage makes for very densely packed classrooms. The school is not wheelchair accessible. Students must be wheeled outside to access the cafetorium, gym, art, and music. Each day.
So you've seen a little bit about the current state of the Douglas School. So I wanted to kind of get into the presentation and talk about exactly what we're asking for today. So the school building committee here is asked to appropriate funds of $1.3 million for a feasibility study that funds designer services and an owner's project manager. We have decided to partner with the Massachusetts School Building Authority, MSBA. You'll hear that acronym a lot this evening. And MSBA is a quasi-governmental agency that has been put in place to partner with towns, cities, and school districts to help for major renovations and for school building projects to make it much more affordable on the communities that they serve. By going through that process, it's a very stringent process that we have to go through, and at some point they will guarantee specific reimbursement. This way, if we follow their process, we can maximize the amount of reimbursement back to us and minimize the cost to the town. Now, MSBA has its own funding mechanism. So every time you buy something in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and you spend, and you have sales tax, a piece of that sales tax, a percentage of that goes into a fund that towns, districts, and cities around can tap and use to help with their building projects. And tonight, that's what we're trying to do, is to be able to get a positive vote so we can actually tap into that money and use that for what is going to be considered a feasibility study. Tonight's vote will not increase the assessment from the school district, will not increase your taxes at this point. We are just here to fund this study, okay? So how did we get here? The master planning process started 2 years ago. We looked at the 9 buildings that we have in the district, 8 of them used for school purposes or teaching purposes. Approximately 841,000 square feet of space. That master planning process, again, took 2 years. We had over 80 stakeholders within the community participate in multiple meetings to come in and take a look at what we have from a building perspective, where education was going, what we needed in the future. And what came out of that was that we had 3 buildings that needed attention. As you can see, most of them were built in the 60s and one in the 70s. One of them has, as you saw today, is 2 stories, not handicapped accessible. Even if you have something on a cart, it has to go outside and go all the way down the ramp and then enter the building, and the same way back if you want to come in. Not so bad in September and October. January, February, not so good. As you can tell with the student capacity going across, you'll see what we have from a capacity perspective versus actually what we need. And then the number of classrooms, the same thing. None of these buildings have sprinklers. 2017, we have elementary school students going to a school with no sprinklers. So we also have some capacity issues. So if you look, these are all the elementary schools within the system that we have right now, all 6 of them. And you can see the square footage, the capacity, the enrollment, and finally, the overcapacity. And again, Douglas, Gates, Conant sit at the top. But I think the big number you really need to focus on is in the bottom right-hand corner, 428. We are currently, as of today, 428 students over capacity. Ladies and gentlemen, that is 1 full school. That's 1 extra school that we should have right now. And we have all those students jammed in to the 6 that we currently have. And it's not going to get any better, because if you look at the enrollment from the projections that we had just 3 years ago, or actually the bottom row is 2015, so that was 2 years ago. And you could see where that dip is, and then we had to redo the projections last year, and that will be the red in the middle. And then finally, we had to go through the projections again for MSBA, which we've submitted these numbers to. That is the top line. So if you look at 2023, which is halfway through the page up top, you'll see all the way at the bottom, would be about 656 students more than we thought we were 2 years ago. In 2023, if this project moves forward, would be when we think we can get into the new building. Now, we also have demographic differences. So within the school district now, we have 280 English language learners. We didn't have that 10 years ago. And then we have a high number of high-need students that require additional space for speech and language, occupational therapy, reading support, counseling, and psychology. So what will the 1.3 be used for? So the 1.3 million follows the MSBA's process. First of all, we have to hire an owner's project manager. And that person, or that company actually, would represent the district through the process and also be the liaison to MSBA for us, okay? These are all required steps, by the way, in the MSBA process. The second component is we need to get an architectural designer. So we have to come up with a schematic design of the new school on the site that we plan on building on. And that process has to go through multiple steps with MSBA all along the way to assure that we will get funding at the end of the process. We'll use that to not only get the final reimbursement amount, but then we are able to come back to town meeting with a confident number of what we would need from you to move forward with this type of project. And then finally, a civil site analysis where we'd have to do wetlands delineation and boundaries, geotechnical analysis, groundwater studies, traffic studies. So all these things have to happen and might have to happen in multiple sites, depending on what we find. Any unused funds from this project will be rolled back into or this phase can be rolled back into the project. Now, there's 2 other things that have to go with the MSBA. One, because Douglas has been the project that's been accepted, we have to be able to submit to them a proposal for renovating Douglas and getting it up to the capacity that we have the students now. The second component of that is we have to also give them a report where we would then take replace the whole building as it is and build up to the capacity that we need now. So those 2 reports have to go back to the MSBA. It just can't be what we are looking for from a preferred option, okay? So the next piece is the preferred option of what we're looking for. And what we believe is building a twin school, similar to what we did with Parker Damon, okay? Building a twin school on the Gates side of the property using Gates and Douglas as a campus, okay? And pulling that part together. So what that would do is it would give us the ability to put Gates and Douglas back into 3 sections. We could handle overflow from the other schools. We wouldn't have to spend money on the modulars, which are now getting out of date. We could take advantage of the state reimbursement. And then also, too, what it will allow us to do is we have pre-K for children's 3 to 5 years old that have special needs. And that is in the old Miriam building where the admin is the administration of the district is in right now. These are some of the most vulnerable students that we have within our system. We can pull them into the school and have classrooms for them there where they have access to music, physical education, they have library, and make them part of the whole system itself. Okay, so what could the projected cost be? So by working with Doran Whittier through the phase, you see here the estimate is 100 to 120 million overall for the twin school. Reimbursement from MSBA could be anywhere between 40 to 45%, and which could be 40 to 54 million. And then, so the estimated AB share, as you can see, 55 to 72. Based on the split between Boxborough, the 85-15, you would see the Acton share of 45 to 60 million on the project itself. So what does that do from a debt service perspective? So here's where we stand right now. So the blue would be the town, the red would be the district. As you see, as we go through, you're starting to see, we get to 2021, and then through, we start to have some of the current projects come off. The junior high, the current twin schools that we have, and then when we get to 2026, you can see where the high school debt drops off there. So we have a new building that we're looking at. Here's some of the numbers on the left-hand side. As you can see, 110 million, 45% reimbursement. But if we don't do this, what happens? Okay, well, we still have to put money into the schools. We still have to get them up to speed, up to ADA compliance, which is American Disabilities Act, and do some extensive repairs. That's probably about 39 million when you take Gates and Douglas, because remember, Douglas is the piece that has brought us into the MSBA. We could go back for MSBA reimbursement, but if we do, then whatever project that we do going forward, that part would come out of whatever fund that they wanted to give us, okay? Because they're not gonna pay for repairs twice, all right? So it could be zero, or we could get money and to cover some of the renovations. But as you can see, as it goes right down, we get 50 years out of a twin building, okay? We can get a 50-year lifespan out of a twin building. We could get 10 years before we have to start putting more money back into these particular repairs and compliance. And yes, it addresses the deficiencies that we have right now, but does not address the space needs. So finally, what are we asking for again? 1.3 million, right? 45.3% is coming back to us from the MSBA. 710,000 is due from us, from the district. We have that in our E&D, okay? So that, much like the town with free cash, we have the excess and deficiency funds. We can spend it out of there. The school committee's already allocated it out of there if we can approve the appropriation from town meeting. And the yes vote tonight, keep this in mind. There's money sitting in there that every person in this room put into the MSBA fund. What we're asking you for is the ability to get that money out to use it for our feasibility study. When you have towns like Concord, Wellesley, Wayland, Weston, they have all tapped MSBA for their school projects. We're asking for a yes vote so we can do the same. If it's good enough for them, it's good enough for us. Sorry. And that's it, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Bruce. Before I turn to the selectmen for their recommendation, I think we have a result that we can post on the motion to move Articles 5 and 6 up after Article 1. Do we have that result? The motion carried 786 yes, 315 no, so we will take up Article 5 and 6 directly after Article 1. Thank you. I will now turn to the Board of Selectmen for their recommendation on the motion on Article 1.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Board of Selectmen unanimously voted to support Article 1, the Regional School District's request for funding for a feasibility study for the elementary school building project. The board recognizes the acute need for repairs in many of the district's buildings, particularly in the Douglas, Conant, and Gates elementary schools and the preschool and the administration building. We share the concerns about the lack of accessibility in these buildings and about the space and design constraints of the existing buildings that have led to providing educational services in inappropriate settings. The board appreciates the time and effort the school committee has put into conducting a capital needs assessment, holding listening and visioning sessions, forming capital and building committees, participating in the town's capital committee, and holding numerous public forums throughout this process. We recognize the value of participating in the MSBA program and the opportunity to obtain substantial funding to help offset the costs of this project. With this in mind, the board unanimously recommends Article 1.
Thank you, Ms. Green. The Finance Committee's recommendation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee also unanimously recommended this article. This article does not require any new taxation. However, as a first step in a long process to potentially build a new school, you're certainly entitled to ask us the question, what's going to happen to my taxes? Obviously, we do not have firm cost numbers, nor do we know the interest rate that the bonds will be placed at. So estimates at this point are just that, estimates. But the numbers, based on the numbers presented tonight, the debt service on $51 million would increase the tax rate by about 90 cents per thousand, or 5%. The average single-family tax bill would increase by roughly $500 per year. Now, this project will add about $3.8 million to our debt service, the principal and interest we pay. But as Dennis pointed out on his graph, by 2023, the service on that existing debt, both town and schools, will have dropped by about $2 million. So that offsets about half of that increase. But this is not about a new school or nothing decision. If we not proceed with the new building project, then we will need to repair the existing facilities. And those facility repair estimates are around $33 million. And that would add about $300 per year to your average single-family tax bill. But the same offset about the declining existing debt service applies there. So this comes down to a decision about value and risk. And by value, I mean, do you want to spend $33 million of your money and wind up with two 60-year-old schools? Or do you want to spend $51 million and $40 million of the state money and have a brand new school? Because the MSBA is essentially matching 80 cents on the dollar for a new school. There's far greater value in building a new school than repairing the old. As far as risk goes, there's two major risks with not proceeding tonight. The first is that we will lose our place with the MSBA and may never get it back. Or if we are successful at some future point in getting on the MSBA list again, the percent that they match may be below the current 45%. So by not proceeding tonight, we're in essence gambling with tens of millions of dollars of state aid. The second area of risk is interest rates. Rates are low now. They're probably only going to go up. The longer we wait to get started, the more costly any option is going to become. So we recommend this article because it represents the best value and the lowest risk. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Noon. Before I open this up to debate among town meeting members, I want to remind everyone that I expect civility from you all. I am well aware of the tenor of the discussion on social media, and I will not tolerate personal attacks, threats, or bullying. We are here to debate the merits of the motion under Article 1, not to debase or criticize individuals. I recognize that we're gathered here as a community to discuss the business of town meeting, but that does not give citizens license to criticize specific individuals or to engage in what town meeting time calls personalities. I will be listening carefully and will interrupt speakers if I feel they have crossed that line, and I will tell you to stop. I don't think I need to remind you that there are plenty of other democratic avenues to express concerns and dissent that are not appropriate for town meeting. Furthermore, I have discussed this with town council, and she has assured me that I am well within my powers as moderator to regulate the debate in this manner. Okay. I will now open up the discussion on the motion under Article 1 for debate. We have pro mics and we have con mics. I believe the con mics are over here, numbers 2 and 4, and the pro mics are numbers 1 and 3. And I will first recognize the person at microphone number 3.
Amanda Bailey, 50 Washington Road, Chair, Acton Boxborough Special Education Parent Advisory Council, Blanchard parent, Acton preschool parent. The current disparities in physical access among our buildings represent a civil rights issue for a district priding itself on open enrollment. Students with disabilities are routinely denied a choice of schools due to program locations or physical access needs. In the former case, this can result in being barred from the newest facilities, free from hazardous material and overcrowding. In the latter, it means some buildings are entirely out of consideration. You can't choose a bad school. When choices are limited or non-existent, the differences are stark. The admin building, built in 1957, houses our early childhood special education children, ages 3 through 5. No art, music, library. They walk to Parker Damon for nursing. Some of our youngest and most vulnerable endure shocking indignities due to the building's limitations. The playground is inaccessible in the middle of a traffic circle. Changing and toileting facilities are inaccessible. The program is on opposite ends of the building. The lower half is only accessible through an exterior door. Supporting the feasibility study and ultimately the building project is the long overdue, ethically and fiscally responsible choice for all our children.
I recognize the speaker at microphone number 2.
Okay. Larry Fry, 1 Fairway Road. I have an informational question for the FinCom, Selectmen, Superintendent of Schools, and representative of the teachers, if they're present. I'm in favor of this. It has to go through in terms of ADA, if no other reason. Excuse me. But I don't understand that there isn't a parallel study being done of what's going to go into that school. Education in 2017 is very different than what's going to be in 2025, 2030, 2035. Cognitive studies of children and how they learn are making developments and discoveries and ways of helping children learn to their fullest capacities at an astounding rate today. And is there any plan for a parallel study similarly funded to look into cognitive studies with experts, educational institutions, etc.? Not having that, I see no way that an architect can appropriately develop a program for the children to get the best education possible. For example, there was a picture of the gym. Gyms in America and in our schools today are essentially a basketball court, a large rectangular room with a wood floor. If you look at what's being done for children in physical education at the elementary level, in terms of cognitive studies, in terms of development, in terms of what they can and can't do, in terms of building collaborations, not just competition, they may not be best met by a large rectangular empty box. And if that's all that we have to work with, we're going to get 1990 children in a 2030 world. It makes no sense to me. And is there such a plan in place? That's the question I'm asking the FinCom, Selectmen, Board of Education, Superintendent.
Thank you. I will first look at Mr. Bruce to see if he can answer that.
Mr. Moderator, the interim superintendent would like to speak to that, but he is not a member of the town of Acton.
We voted town staff, so I think he fits under that.
All right, so
rubric.
then we're good.
Mr. Moderator, good morning, everyone. Thank you for the question. It's important to understand that the feasibility study that we will be required to follow the Mass School Building Authority's protocols. It's a well-developed, clearly defined process that all school districts that are looking to partner for a school building project with MSBA must go through. One of the very first steps of the feasibility study is a process called Preliminary Design Program. And MSBA now has been doing this for many years. Let me just read a few excerpts from the manual. The purpose of the preliminary design program is to define the programmatic, functional, spatial, and environmental requirements of the educational facility necessary to meet the district's educational program and perform the review and investigation required to clearly define the existing building deficiencies in order to move forward. And what that will mean is the design firm, the design of the architectural firm, and the owner's project manager firm working with MSBA will go through a project where we will define, essentially through the preliminary program design, what the needs of a building going well into the 21st century will require and what current and future instructional needs are. So I believe that that addresses the question at hand.
Excuse me, do you have a very quick follow-up question? I recognize the speaker at microphone number 2.
Being built that do not meet the needs of each individual community and certainly do not meet and take into account ongoing developments in understanding children, how they function, how they learn best. It's putting children into the cookie cutter and trying to get them to adapt, not the other way around. And it seems to me Acton and Acton-Boxborough has some opportunity here to look at something very different for our children that can, and grandchildren that can really work. And it seems to me penny wise, pound foolish, if it means going ahead with a program that is cookie cutter, that does not really research and have educational experts dealing with the architectural program. If you look at those schools, they're no different than a 1990s school.
Thank you, sir. I recognize the speaker at microphone number 1.
Good evening, Lisa Jensen Fellows from 44 Neshoba Road. I urge you to vote yes on Article 1. If you care about our community's children and their education, please do the right thing and vote yes. Acton students who attend Douglas Gates in the preschool learn in spaces that don't meet their needs and don't satisfy the conditions of the Americans with Disability Act. We ask our community's kids to put forward their best effort. We should support them by investing in facilities that promote their learning. If you care about your property value, please do the right thing and vote yes. Our property values are underpinned by the quality of our schools and the success of our students. Potential purchasers will want to see that our community supports our schools and our students. Right now, potential residents drive by Douglas and see a decrepit building with a flat roof and 2 trailers stuck on the ends. We want potential residents to see a community that demonstrates its support for our schools and our students. If you care about your taxes, please vote yes. This feasibility study puts us on a path to receive 45% reimbursement of the total investment in our schools from the state. If we fail at this hurdle, we will still need to invest, and we may need to make that investment without reimbursement. If you are considering voting against Article 1 because you are unhappy with members of the school committee or their actions, please reconsider. You can vote yes on this feasibility study allocation and vote on school committee membership later. This vote is about investing in school buildings our community desperately needs. It will also send a message to potential permanent superintendent candidates. Good ones will pause and possibly not apply if they see our community does not want to make needed investment in our buildings and by extension our kids' education. Please do the right thing and vote yes on Article 1 for our kids, our schools, our community. Thank you.
I recognize the speaker at microphone number 2.
Alan Mitchell, 9 Marion Road. My kids went to Douglas School, and I can definitely tell you it needs to be upgraded, no question. The issue in my mind is one of these greater good type issues, and that is whether we are going to ignore what happened 4 or 5 months ago and proceed under business as usual. And I don't believe we can. We have some important decisions to make as a town and as a school district coming up. And to pretend that nothing happened, just go along, I don't believe is an acceptable alternative because it trains our leaders, and I'm talking about our current leaders and our future leaders, that it is okay to misrepresent the truth in order to achieve their objectives. And that is not a lesson we would teach our kids, and it's not a lesson that we should willingly accept by our leaders. So even though I'm in favor of refurbishing the schools, I would rather delay that for a period of time until the people who are responsible for what happened a few months ago take responsibility and resign from the committee.
Mr.
And that-
Nitzelm, we're not making personal attacks here.
I have not
Please.
mentioned any personal names at all.
The implication is clear.
It is clear.
Please move on.
I will not.
Yes, please do.
I'm talking about what the school committee did as a body. I'm not making any personal attacks. How can you tell me?
Excuse me, sir, you mentioned specifically resignation of members.
Yes.
That is a personal attack, in my opinion.
Okay.
So please move on.
I will not make any personal attacks. The entire school committee should resign, but I will take some individual resignations along the way if that happens. So I urge a no vote, and we can revisit this later. Thank you.
Joanne, do you have people in your room wishing to speak?
We do have a speaker who is speaking in favor of the article.
Please proceed.
Okay, now.
Danny Factor, 11 Davis Road, number A5. But I speak right now not as a private citizen, but as the representative of the Acton Commission on Disabilities. I'm one of 7 members of the commission, and our commission voted unanimously to support voting yes on this warrant article. I can tell you, I've been a member of the commission for 8 years now, and out of all the public buildings that we've studied, there is no building in my memory that our commission has been more concerned about access for than the Douglas School. I can tell you that we were told at one point that down on the bottom floor of the Douglas School, where you have kindergarten and first grade and second grade classrooms with no vertical access to the rest of the school, that there was a situation with a child who was temporarily on crutches, and that child in the winter had to, just to be able to get to the lunchroom or to get to what are called specials, art or anything else in the school, had to be led into the outside in the cold on a path that was dangerous, and every single day, just to be able to do the normal things that we expect our kids to do in school, like go to lunch and have a music class. Not only injuring the child's civil rights, but risking the child's safety as well. This is absolutely unacceptable. The right, as Amanda Bailey spoke, the right to equal public education is a basic civil right. Our own 2020 master plan makes it clear that we make a commitment for Acton to be a diverse community, and a commitment to diversity begins at minimum with a commitment to basic civil rights of people with disabilities. So please, even if you have other concerns about this article, please fight your battle in a way that doesn't compromise the rights of children with disabilities. Please vote yes. That's what the Commission on Disabilities asks you to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. There are no other speakers in here.
Thank you. I recognize the speaker at microphone number 1. Number 1.
Is it on? Oh, yes, it is. John Peterson, 6 Jackson Drive. The education of our children is a communal activity. We don't tax according to the number of children that live in any house. We tax according to properties. The regional agreement, which was put into place 5 years ago, unfortunately doesn't reflect that fact, so that the allocations that you see in the warrant article tonight reflect that in the future, should we go ahead with this, Boxborough would contribute 17 or 18% to the cost, while Acton would contribute more than its relative property value. This, in many, many ways, is not communal support for education. Fortunately, the regional agreement has in it the note that after 5 years, the school committee should revisit the agreement to see how it will work. As we look at this significant capital expenditure, I would hope that the school committee would take this apportionment of costs article up again to look at how we can most equitably guarantee that we properly fund our children's education. With respect to the feasibility, let me thank Mr. Bruce for an excellent presentation, and let me encourage everyone to vote yes on the feasibility study. Thank you.
Thank you. I recognize the speaker at microphone number 4.
Ann Chang, South Acton, and noticing the hour, I call the previous question.
Motion has been made to cut off debate, and it has been seconded. It is not debatable. It requires a 2/3 majority. For expediency of time, I'm going to hope that we can do this verbally. And so I'm first going to call for the vote in this auditorium. All those in favor of the motion to cut off the debate, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Joanne, would you do the same in the other room? I certainly hear vastly greater than 2/3 in this room.
All in favor of cutting off debate at this time, please say aye. Aye. All who are opposed, please say nay. The motion does carry up here.
I declare that the motion to cut off debate has passed. We will now vote on the motion on Article 1. We will do this the way we did the motion to move the articles around, so we will do this electronically, and then we will also have teller-counted votes in the overflow room. So we will start here in the auditorium. We'll do as we've done before this evening. We will start in the section to my right. Remember that if you wish to vote in favor of the motion, please press the A button. If you wish to vote against the motion, press the E button. Would you now, all of you, please turn on your clickers by pressing lightly the orange button. And I would first ask those in the section on my right to please go ahead and vote. I would now ask those in the middle section to please vote. And I would ask those on the section on my left to please vote. We've got some no bases here. Can you try hitting the green or blue button and trying? Okay. Has everyone gotten the positive feedback that your vote has been tallied? Okay. Joanne, we'll move into your room.
Our people who have voted by clicker have already voted.
Okay, so we're now going to tally by the tellers the count in.
Yes.
Okay. With all due respect to the school building committee, what I would like to do, since that does seem to take a few minutes, I would love to move on to the next article while we are tallying the vote on Article 1. As soon as we know it, because I know many of you are sitting on the edges of your seat, we will announce the result. But I do wish to move on now to Article 5. Yeah. Okay. For those of you who are leaving, I would ask you to perhaps stay and hear for the result of the vote. I think it's probably worth waiting a couple minutes before we actually move on to Article 5. But I would ask people to please wait. We should have the result here pretty quickly. Thank you. Okay.
I haven't seen the announcement of kind of major result of the vote in the middle of the series. Yeah. I haven't seen it, so it makes me a little nervous.
Yeah, okay.
We've got folks that
Yeah, I mean,
know their procedure around here.
well, the issue came up on
Did it?
can you do more than you? I really don't think it. Except for the only thing from the side that one.
That was on the
That was on the only time I ever remember in the
Right. I see that. I just feel like they should be able to get these votes going.
It just all depends on how quickly the tellers.
Well, there's a lot of emails
It took a while before.
that they can be changed around.
But I assume. Joanne, I assume you're doing the teller counted votes? Joanne?
Yes, the teller count is underway.
Okay. Same time they increased yours to 600. Okay, I believe we have a vote tally and a vote count here. Can we please put that up on the screen? The motion under Article 1 carries by a vote of 993 yes, 84 nay. Motion carries. We will now move to Article 5. I will read the motion under Article 5. Ms. Adachi moves that the town adopt the zoning bylaw amendments as set forth in the article. Ms. Adachi, you may speak to your motion.
Thank you, Mr.
Oh, no, sorry, need a second first.
Oops, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and thank you, second. I don't have a slide presentation. This is the moderator's preferred approach, is to just talk at the mic, and actually I don't have that much to say, but I will cover 3 issues: what the article provides, why the selectmen put it on the warrant, and finally what other towns are doing on this topic. The article would add a new section to Section 3 of the zoning bylaw, establishing a temporary moratorium, which means a delay in the Latin, through the end of 2018. The moratorium would bar for 1 year the use of land and buildings in Acton for recreational marijuana businesses. The moratorium is temporary and of limited duration because that is what the Massachusetts Attorney General's office has indicated a recreational marijuana moratorium must be. And finally, and more importantly, the proposed moratorium would not apply to any Massachusetts registered medical marijuana dispensary. Why a temporary moratorium? A moratorium would allow time for the town to see and analyze the final regulations under the recreational marijuana law and make informed, fact-based decisions as to what zoning bylaw changes or other action the town might wish to pursue with respect to recreational marijuana. The Cannabis Control Commission, which is the newly created state commission that must implement and enforce the recreational marijuana law, will not issue final regulations until March of next year at the earliest. The draft regulations are supposed to be out by the end of the month, but we'll see. In addition, a moratorium would provide an opportunity for more public education and informed discussion about the recreational marijuana law. Opinion in Acton is divided. Last November, Acton voters approved the state ballot question about the legalization of recreational marijuana, but not by a large majority. 51.24% of participating voters voted yes, 47.37% voted no, and the remaining voters didn't bother casting votes on that particular ballot question. What have other towns done? The numbers are a moving target. The numbers that I got from the Mass Municipal Association last month are, as of late November, have represented change from the middle of the month and also from the numbers that I got from the Mass Municipal Association in September. But thus far in the state of 351 communities, 92 towns or cities have voted for temporary moratoria. Moratoria is plural, if you know Latin. Anyhow, and 40 communities have voted to ban recreational marijuana. Closer to, in our vicinity, the towns that have voted for temporary moratoria are Boxborough, Carlisle, Concord, Lincoln, Littleton, Stowe, Sudbury, and Wayland. And Harvard apparently had a moratorium vote, but the vote failed. Of those towns that I just mentioned, all of the towns voted for the state ballot question last November, except for Sudbury, which voted no. And finally, Westford, immediately to our north, voted to ban recreational marijuana, and also last November voted no. So in conclusion, the Board of Selectmen requests that town meeting vote to approve Article 5.
Thank you, Ms. Adachi. The Finance Committee have a recommendation on this motion.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends this article.
Thank you. I will now open it up for town meeting members to debate this motion. Joanne, do you have anyone standing?
I see no one standing. Oh, wait, we do have a speaker.
No. I have one person in this room. I'll recognize first. The speaker at microphone number 2.
Tara Fredericks, West Acton. I feel like we know enough already, and the commission's rules or suggested rules for enactment appear to be pretty straightforward. And so I don't see that a moratorium is necessary. I also feel like from a social justice and an environmental buy local type perspective, that these small local farmers need the time to get up and running so that when Big Pot comes in, which I don't think anybody wants, to concentrate supplies and concentrate influence in a huge corporations that are positioning to move into Massachusetts. Allowing these small growers to get a head start, or at least get an equal start, because given the money that's coming in for Big Pot, people think that they really need this time. And so I urge you to vote no on this. Thank you.
I'll recognize the speaker at microphone number 3.
Hi, my name is Kristen Smith Park, and I live at 8 Wingate Lane. Commercialization of a product like marijuana is not the same as legalization or decriminalization of marijuana. It's legal now. It has been decriminalized. This is entirely different than having a retail store, farm, manufacturer, or testing site in Acton. We are not here to discuss legalization of marijuana. Let's be clear that we are focusing on the commercialization of marijuana tonight, and if Acton should participate in that process. By law, Acton can opt out. I think we should opt out. I support Article 5, the moratorium, and Article 6, the ban, with a yes/no vote.
Joanne, do you have a speaker in your room?
We have 2 speakers.
Why don't you go with at least one of those?
Okay, yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This is Nancy Waters at 622 Massachusetts Avenue. If and when a retail marijuana establishment opens anywhere in the area, I have no intention of patronizing it, so I just want that to be clear. The voters of Massachusetts spoke. They said that this substance should be legal. If you do not make it available, it is effectively the same thing as illegalizing it, and we all know that. We sell tobacco in this town, we sell alcohol in this town. It is hypocritical not to make marijuana available when its damage could not possibly exceed the damage that alcohol has caused to this society. And finally, it's going to be somewhere. And what we are seeing is that the wealthy, fancy, leafy towns are saying, no, we don't want it. But people from the wealthy, fancy, leafy towns will still show up in the less wealthy, less fancy, less leafy towns to buy it. Many of them will be your kids. It is hypocritical NIMBYism. Thank you.
Joanne, do you have another speaker in your room?
We do. Go ahead, sir.
Oh, good evening. James Conboy, 120 Parker Street. I'm not going to repeat, hopefully, what the previous speaker said, but we have in Massachusetts one of the strongest methods of conveying the will of the people, and that is the ballot question, which everybody knows was passed last November on recreational marijuana. And the state approved, and of course, as the speaker reiterated, Acton also voted in favor. So I'm proposing that we not make a bylaw to disallow a business that wants to come into town obeying the state provisions in the law and our own zoning regulations. From the taxpayer point of view, which I've been for 21 years, I know that we are footing about 87% of the tax burden because of the relatively low number of businesses in town. So to remedy that a little bit would be to not chase away law-abiding, tax-paying businesses that want to come into town. And as the previous speaker implied, we have, well, within a walking distance of 3 schools here, a store that's been for years selling alcohol, tobacco, and gambling tickets, and there's not been any uproar about that. The reason why? They follow the rules, obey the laws. And any business that wants to come into Acton will have to do the same. Thank you for your time.
Recognize the speaker at microphone number 4.
John Peterson, 6 Jackson Drive. Like the previous two speakers, because the question was put to the voters said that this should be legalized. It seems to me that Acton should participate in supporting the will of the voters in this state and allow this to proceed. I think one of the things that is a concern is how does marijuana compare to alcohol and other drugs? And I think from a toxicological perspective, this is an easy question to answer. Marijuana is far, far safer than alcohol. I think we will all be better off when this is regulated, like alcohol, is available legally, and Acton should be part of making that happen. Thank you.
I recognize the speaker at microphone number 3.
Dr. John Blute, 11 Briar Hill Road, Acton. I have been a resident of this town for 37 years and practiced at Emerson. And I understand that there was a vote about the legalization in this state and in this town. But I will reiterate again that all medical organizations that I'm aware of said that this should not occur. I'll state that as simply a personal opinion, but also what occurred. In terms of allowing more time for our community to make decisions about whether this should be sold or grown in our community, I strongly urge a vote of yes on this warrant article. We need more time. With respect to the safety that was discussed with this product, with this drug, vis-a-vis alcohol and others, the data is continuing to emerge, but we do know in Colorado that emergency room visits for teenagers and young adults clearly increased between 2 and 4 times. And interestingly, although the results were not significantly greater, accidents, motor vehicle accidents and other accidents also increased in the communities that this was being used. I would strongly suggest more distance at this time for consideration in terms of selling this particular drug. We are very much in the midst of the most alarming opioid epidemic that this country has ever seen. We can't directly extrapolate that to marijuana, but I think that should be something to be considered. And we need more time.
Please allow the speaker to speak.
I strongly urge support, a yes vote on this warrant.
I recognize, please, I will not tolerate applause or booing. We are respectful of each speaker. We can be disagreeable, but we should not indicate that by booing or applauding. Thank you. I recognize the speaker at microphone number 2.
Greg Voss, 8 Mohawk Drive. I've been a resident here in Acton for 30 years, and I think the turnout here tonight is wonderful. And I hope that you all continue to turn out, not just for 1 or 2 articles. I just wanted to start off there. So, we are going to have marijuana in this town, and you here can decide whether it will be controlled or whether it will be uncontrolled. The black market will be here. It is here. Thank you. So we can decide as a community whether we wanted to control it and organize it, plan it, or, excuse me.
Excuse me, please allow the speaker to speak. He has the floor.
So I encourage everyone here to vote no, because we are going to have marijuana in the black market here if we do not have recreational marijuana in town. The temporary ban is not necessary. We have the state organizing a commission to put all the regulations in place. We know how to follow the state regulations for alcohol, for tobacco, for all other controlled substances. It's not unreasonable that we can't follow the regulations as they come in from the state and put in place in a reasonable amount of time. It's been done in other states. We are not exceptional. It's a reasonable ask to do it on time and not have a temporary ban. Thank you.
I recognize the speaker at microphone number 1.
Hello, my name is Erica Hanley-Onken. I live at 2 Hazelnut Street. So I probably, like many people here, am a strong supporter of small business and economic development. However, there are 2 issues with retail marijuana establishments. Number 1, retail marijuana is not small business, or it won't be for long, because there is big marijuana or like big tobacco coming soon. And number 2, opening Acton to this type of economic development has a negative impact on other economic possibilities in our town. So recently, Ernst & Young published a study on the Canadian cannabis market. Canada is actually seeking to fully legalize recreational cannabis and open up sale and distribution to both domestic and international markets. Guess who may likely be first? According to this report, which is available on the internet, available through Ernst & Young, etc., available on Marijuana Times, 87% of Canadian cannabis producers themselves say industry consolidation is inevitable. Again, big marijuana. Also, a majority of those same producers say the black market will not go away. Another recent article in Inc. magazine quotes a partner at a marijuana holding company that owns 3 dispensaries in California. According to this partner, who's also general counsel there, he said, quote, "We came to the realization that running dispensaries is a great business, but it's a lot of work, it's not at all that profitable, and it's challenging to work with the regulations." So where does this leave Acton? Our town's economic development is on the table. If we want strong, positive economic development, recreational marijuana establishments are not the way to achieve it. Reason number 1, small recreational marijuana shops do not necessarily support the buy local economy. People are going to source wherever it's the cheapest. Reason number 2, we're not going to fill our storefronts for the long term. Small local businesses can close quickly in the face of larger stores with better prices. Just think Walmart. And reason number 3, if small recreational marijuana shops do remain in Acton, likely that they'll be taken over by big marijuana, which means large companies will seek tax concessions from us, not the other way around, getting tax revenue. And in closing, this form of economic development is an unsure one. We're wasting taxpayers' time, money, and energy on an uncertain future, and one with all the drawbacks that you'll hear about this evening, likely. So ask yourself, do we really want this type of economic development for our town? I encourage you to vote yes on Articles 5 and 6. Thank you.
I recognize the speaker at microphone number 3.
Rachel Rodman, we live on Pope Road. I'm a nurse, I'm a pediatric nurse. We lived in Massachusetts for a while, about 8 years. Then we moved back to Colorado. It was the second time we've moved to Colorado, and then we moved back to Massachusetts. So while in Colorado, one of my positions was as the behavioral nurse for an entire school district, Thompson School District, which is in Loveland, Colorado. And my entire job was to educate the faculty, the students, and the community primarily on THC, because it was a THC tax revenue funded position. So the taxes went back to the schools in that way. I want to make sure that everyone understands that the THC companies have strategy, and as this woman just explained, these are not small companies. These are large companies. Most of them are based out of state, and they buy and they create recreational dispensaries in other states. There's a strategy called normalization, which is to help it appear to especially family-oriented towns that there should be dispensaries, and many, many of them. That's an actual strategy that these companies use. I wanted to comment on, the lovely physician said something, and I want to make this very clear. THC is not regulated on the federal level. And I have seen our own patients who have given CBD oil struggle with what they are given with because it varies from dispensary to dispensary and even from the same dispensary from week to week. I've never had a kindergarten student end up in an intensive care unit from alcohol intoxication like I have from THC. Make sure that you understand that and understand that the process of normalization when children are exposed to this, the dispensary, I think actually can increase their use of it. They're more likely to get it from their parents and their own home than they are from anywhere else. In Colorado, it was very well regulated, I will say that, and I never had heard of a single case where there was ever any underage selling, so it really comes from the home. That's all.
Thank you. I recognize the speaker at microphone number 1.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My name is Monica Burke, and I live at 15 Washington Drive. Acton is behind 200 other towns in Massachusetts that have already taken action on this issue. I would like to thank the Board of Selectmen for bringing this forward tonight so we can finally act on it. We have 3 choices in Massachusetts: either a ban, a moratorium, which is a temporary ban with a deadline, or we just do zoning restrictions, or we can do absolutely nothing and they can set up shop next to the high school. 70%, so 200 towns have already acted on this. A number of them have bans. Very few, I think it's about 17, have opened the door with zoning restrictions. That means they can come on in. Here's where you can go, come on in. Everybody else has set up bans and moratoriums. 70% of Colorado opted out. If you think this was all over the place in Colorado, you're sorely wrong. We are following along with what Colorado has done. I want to make sure that everyone is fully aware of that. In Colorado, the black market is thriving, and here's why. It's surrounded by a bunch of states where it's illegal. You can't buy it in Colorado, drive across the border to Oklahoma or Nebraska, and sell it. People do. Their jails are filling up, according to the Attorney General. So litigation is a whole other issue. We've got Rhode Island, we've got Connecticut, we've got a lot of states around us where it's not legal. So this is a very complicated matter. This isn't about legalization. It's legal. This isn't about whether it's safer than alcohol. That's debatable. This is about whether we want to have the shops in Acton, cultivation and so forth, and deal with the consequences. We put a ban on, we wait 5 years, 3 years, 2 years. Look, nothing happened. Get rid of the ban. I say we put the moratorium up now, consider a ban, and then maybe in 5 or 10 years, if in fact nothing has happened everywhere else, go for it. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. Recognize the speaker at microphone number 4.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Astrid Trostor, 15 Mohegan Road. I find it very interesting that we're discussing whether marijuana will come to Acton. I've lived in Acton for 35 years. It's been here all along. My 34-year-old son had marijuana offered to him when he was in 7th grade in 1996. It's here. It's being sold on campus. Walk in the woods, you can smell it. So don't pretend that by keeping shops out of Acton, you're going to keep marijuana out of Acton. You will have shops that will not sell to anyone under 21, and the stuff that they're selling will be marijuana. as opposed to some of the stuff that's being sold. There was an incident on the Cape this summer where 2 people overdosed because they thought they were smoking marijuana, and it was laced with fentanyl, and they died. It is not a gateway drug to the opioids. The opioids are being prescribed by doctors, and people are getting addicted. It is not a gateway for lots of other things. The only gateway it is your pusher, your supplier, has other stuff. And I saw that with my own kids. The people who were selling marijuana were also selling harder drugs, and they were selling the alcohol that they were taking from their parents' liquor cabinets, and they were selling their younger siblings ADHD Adderall. So the stuff is out there. You can talk to the policemen. They will tell you that our kids can get this stuff easier than you would believe. The question is, where are people going to get it from? And if we have it in Acton, regulated like it is in other states, your 15-year-old will not be able to go in the store. And I can assure you that whoever is running that store is going to be very careful about who they're selling it to, because that's how their money's made. They sell it to someone underage, they're closing up shop. I think we're putting on blinders. We're pretending that this stuff doesn't exist. It's here, and by putting up barriers, we hope it will go away. Legal recreational marijuana is going to be in Massachusetts. Whether Acton's going to have it or not is what you will decide. But I think that we haven't heard from the FinCom, or what are the potential tax revenues that this town could have if there were a dispensary. Is there any local tax on the selling of marijuana? And what would the impact be on a town like Acton, which doesn't have a very deep commercial base and has lots of empty storefronts? Thank you.
We've been debating this for about a half an hour now. There are still a few people standing. Joanne, do you have people in your room standing?
We do.
I will sort of ask this question. Are there really very many people out there who have not made up their minds how they're going to vote?
I'll ask the same in here. If you are unsure, there's a few here, not many.
Well, why don't we hear from a speaker or two in your room, Joanne?
Okay. Go ahead.
I appreciate it, Mr. Moderator. I'm Mary Donald from Acton, Taylor Road, and I would like to move the question.
I thought we were going to get more medical advice, but...
I think we did. The motion has been made to cut off debate. I do hear a second. It is not debatable. We will take a vote. Again, we will try to do this by voice as we did before. All those in favor of the motion to cut off debate, please say aye. Aye. Those say nay. Joanne?
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say nay. Motion carries here.
Okay, I declare that the motion to cut off debate carries virtually unanimously, not quite. So we will now move to vote on the motion under Article 5. Again, this requires, because it is a zoning bylaw, it requires a 2/3 majority to pass. We will do this electronically. So I would again ask people to find their clickers and please turn them on. And once they are on, we seem to be ready, so we will again do this sequentially. We will start in this side of the room. You may now please cast your vote for those folks on the right-hand side of the auditorium. Those in the middle may now cast their votes. And those on the left-hand side may cast their votes. Okay, one seems to have worked. Joanne?
Okay, we're starting. So start over here.
Joanne, are you now doing the teller counted vote? Joanne?
We are starting the teller counted vote, yes.
Just rough count, how many folks do you have in that room, just so we know?
We haven't lost many out of that room.
Okay?
It's
I was
full over
wondering whether we could consolidate, but I think we'll wait until we perhaps dispose of Article 6. And I really do think we can move on to Article 6 at this point. I really see no reason not to at this point. I don't see a lot of people going out. I think somehow most people have in mind that these two are somewhat related. So I would like to proceed to Article 6, which is, while we're tallying the votes, Article 6 is a non-binding resolution, a ballot question on recreational marijuana. I'm not sure where the proponent is, but I would ask that, yep, he's on his way down here. I will read the motion. This motion is a lot briefer than Article 1, that's for sure. Mr. Onken moves that the town adopt the non-binding resolution as set forth in the article. Do I have a second? Second. Motion has been made and seconded. We are actually, as I think I alluded to earlier this evening, we're going to have a presentation first in support of this non-binding resolution, and then we will also have a brief presentation con the non-binding resolution, against the non-binding resolution. But I will recognize you, Mr. Onken. You may proceed. Bless you.
Peter?
Joanne?
We're, since some of the people in the second overflow now have clickers, they missed the vote since the sound isn't great in here. So what is the appropriate process to allow the folks, oh wait, I think they're counting them.
I think it's best just to count them.
They're just raising their clickers high, yes.
Okay. Is that like voting early and often? Okay, so we will take care of that vote. Mr. Onken, I'm sorry, please proceed.
All right, thank you, Mr. Moderator. So as you heard before, there were a lot of great debate, both pro and against, for Article 5. But I just want to reiterate a couple things. I'm not going to dwell on a lot, but I know that Astrid over there had mentioned something about the tax revenue. And one of the things that I find very interesting is that in the tax, the way it's proposed, is that the maximum amount of tax we could get out of this on the sales tax is 6%. It's negotiated. Some towns have actually gone lower than 6%. So if you're thinking about how big a recreational marijuana shop is, now I know the people that are for the marijuana establishments here in Acton say they're going to do in the first year, I think it was $8 to $12 million in revenue. That seems like a lot. If you go to the Marijuana Journal or MarijuanaBizJournal.com, they say that 2/3 of recreational marijuana establishments out there make less than $1 million. So either we're going to have, and I'm going to do some quick math here, 8 to 12 or more recreational marijuana facilities here in Acton to equal that $8 to $12 million of revenue, or we're going to have, as my lovely wife had mentioned, the Walmart version, where we have these two huge facilities that do the $8 to $12 million worth of revenue. Now, if we are going to go and say, hey, the average shop is about $1 million a year in terms of revenue, tax that at 6%, that's only about $60,000. That really doesn't seem like a lot of tax or a lot of revenue coming in. But as we all know, money isn't necessarily free. So we have to ask ourselves what kind of infrastructure is going to be used or necessary for these recreational marijuana facilities. Now, other towns, such as the town of Amherst, which does have a larger population than us, has shown that they estimated there were going to be 2 additional police officers and 4 EMTs needed for each of those shops out there. Now, we're going to have to scale that back, so I don't think we're going to need 2 and 4, but we will have to have some sort of infrastructure and some sort of need. They were actually pinning it at about $500,000 worth of extra cost. So just using, again, simple math here, if we're gaining $60,000 per shop, but spending $500,000 in not marijuana revenue over there, but in taxpayer revenue, that doesn't seem like a fair equity here, right? Even if we go down and say we have to spend $100,000 worth of of some sort of services. That still means that we're $40,000 in the hole. That's like me going out and buying $100 worth of lottery tickets, scratching them off and winning 60 bucks. I didn't win. I just lost a bunch of money. Another thing that we want to talk a little bit about is property values. I know that's a hotly debated item, but you know what? If you look out at Zillow right now, you will find some of those towns in Massachusetts actually are now going out and saying that we are in an opt-out community. That means that there is some sort of property value associated with it. Those real estate agents are getting smart about how they're marketing. And I think as we heard earlier when we were talking about the school system and people driving by and seeing Douglas with a flat roof and people wondering, oh, what kind of community do we actually live in? Do we support our children? Well, what about this? What kind of community are we going to see if we have the recreational marijuana shops and how is that going to affect our property values? Now, Monica did a great job in talking about the different towns out there. Yes, we have over 351 towns in Massachusetts. Over 200 of them have done some sort of ban or moratorium. And again, juxtapose that with the 70% of Colorado towns that have opted out. They have had this for what, 5 years already? What do they know that we don't? What are they seeing that we aren't seeing? Are they seeing the tax revenue? Maybe, who knows? But by inference, we could say they could be questioning the tax, the property value, the crime. What are they doing? So what we are asking is that, hey, the moratorium's great. It's a great start. But we want to have the Board of Selectmen vote or have us be able to vote in the March election on the Article 6. Yes, question 4 was approved in Massachusetts, but we have the right, according to the law, to have a vote to opt out. And by the way, we talked about those towns, those over 200 towns that are out there. Here's some of the ones that are out there with the ban. Westford, Chelmsford, Bedford, Lexington, Woburn, Weston, Winchester, Reading, Needham, and Burlington. The ones with the moratorium, Boxborough, Stowe, Concord, Carlisle, Littleton, Sudbury, Wayland, Billerica, Andover, and Lincoln. That's quite a lot of people. And there was another comment by, I believe it was Dennis, which said...
Sir, I would really prefer you not mention specific people's names.
Sorry.
That is something that is not really taken very well here.
Oh, sorry. Okay, well then, by the person that was standing at this microphone in the very beginning, he said, if it's good enough for those other towns like Weston and Wellesley, et cetera, to get new schools, why isn't it good enough for us? I'm going to ask the same question. Why can they ban it and we can't? So, yes, we did pass question 4 with a 51% vote, but we're asking but Article 6 is in compliance with the new law to request that the Board of Selectmen votes to place the ballot in question in a municipal election. So people might say, let's say, hopefully this moratorium does pass, but why would we need Article 6, which is the opt-out, if we already have a moratorium? Well, the moratorium does go through December 31st of 2018. And as another person that was up here had mentioned that the Cannabis Control Commission was just formed in September. They're going to have regulations in March, and the first recreational marijuana shop that can open in the state of Massachusetts would be in July of 2018. So I'm going to, again, do some simple math and say August, September, October, November, December. That's 5 months for us to figure out whether these regulations work. 5 months for us to see how these regulations are going to be enforced. 5 months for us to see if this actually does make us any tax revenue. Is that really enough time? I would say that it makes more sense for us to opt out, wait a couple of years, 2, 3, whatever it is, take a look at how other states and how other municipalities have done it, and see if it does make sense for us. Because I'm going to guarantee you 5 months is not enough time here. Also, as of January 1st of 2019, once this moratorium expires, the medicinal marijuana facilities that are out there can actually convert themselves over to a recreational one as well, without having to have any sort of town vote or any sort of notification. So what is Article 6? It is a non-binding petition. It needs a yes majority vote today from all of you and an affirmative vote by the Board of Selectmen to include this as a question on the March 27, 2018 ballot. We're asking basically that the Board of Selectmen vote yes if we as a whole vote yes. So in essence, let us have the chance to have democracy continue to work. It is not a reopening of the legalization issue. You can still own it, grow it, and you can change your Victory Garden over from tomatoes to pot if you want. Don't care. You can spark up whatever you want. So that's fine, but we don't necessarily need or want to have a recreational marijuana shop in Acton. Article 6 also has no downside. Let the people vote. What's the big deal if we have the option, if it's allowed by law for us to vote for it, why wouldn't we want the opportunity to vote for it? Why wouldn't we want to have the ability to take a pause and see if this actually works for longer than 5 months? And if the Board of Selectmen does approve, we will need all of us, we need, again, this type of crowd, pro and against, to show up. This is a great turnout, I love it. The next steps, if Article 6 passes and the Board of Selectmen affirmatively vote, is the ballot question will appear on the March 27, 2018 election, if they agree. The ballot question asks if the town of Acton should adopt bylaw amendments that prohibit recreational marijuana establishments such as retailers, stores, cultivators, farmers, testing facilities, manufacturers, so it's a broad spectrum here. And the Acton residents will have the right to decide if they want these commercializations in town by casting that vote. And again, this amendment has zero impact on your freedom to do this. In fact, if we do vote yes for an opt-out, on March 28th, you can still have your own pot in your house. Go for it. Chew your brownie, that's fine. So I want to urge people here, I want to have everyone here, please vote in the affirmative for for Article 6. And also I implore the Board of Selectmen to listen to the vote. And if the vote says yes, to put it on the March 28th, 2018 ballot, or 27th, 2018 ballot. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will now hear a con presentation. I believe there are two representatives from Nature's Remedy here to give a brief con presentation. I should also say that I am going to limit the debate on this motion to a time certain. I think we've already had quite a bit of discussion on the issue of marijuana. We also have several other articles to attend to this evening, and this is a non-binding resolution. Would you please introduce yourselves?
Yes, my name is Bob Carr. I'm president of Nature's Remedy in Massachusetts, and this is Ashley Esper. She's the director of retail for Nature's Remedy. We're a medical marijuana company. Ashley is going to present for you, so she's going to present the facts of cannabis, so you can make informed decisions tonight. We are a small owner-operator company, and would like to let Ashley take it from here. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. As Bob mentioned, my name is Ashley Esper. I'm the Director of Retail Operations for Nature's Remedy, and we're here to ask you tonight to please vote no for a ban on the sale of recreational marijuana in your community in the town of Acton. So on behalf of Nature's Remedy, I'd just like to present you with some statistics and some facts about cannabis. So currently there are only 15 medical cannabis dispensaries throughout the state of Massachusetts. To put this in perspective for you just for a second, in comparison to Colorado, there's 500 medical dispensaries open today. Massachusetts and Colorado have similar population sizes. So this boils down to the fact that there's currently not enough dispensaries open to satisfy demand. Patients are deciding what their needs are. So what this means is different patients have different ailments. They're going to need different medications, and not all dispensaries are offering the same types of products. So it's important to consider that there are several patients or customers that are immobile, and some of them can't drive far. So even to ask them to drive 20 minutes to the nearest dispensary in another town is a lot. As mentioned earlier tonight, legal access to cannabis undermines the black market. This is irrefutable. Whether it be a medical or a recreational dispensary, we're going to offer Nature's Remedy, any dispensary, safe and tested products, and we have control over our distribution. Another point to consider here is perception versus reality. I'm a medical marijuana patient, and I can speak from experience when I say these are non-events. You walk in, and whether it be recreational or medical dispensaries, we want, as a dispensary, the same thing the community wants, for the patient or the customer to walk in, to purchase their product, and to leave. And these dispensaries are run by responsible owners. We're not big marijuana. A cannabis dispensary in Acton will not require an increase in police or EMT services. A study put out by the University of Texas actually proves that crime does not increase in areas that allow a cannabis dispensary. Legalization is linked to decreased homicide and assault, and the rationale behind this is because when you increase cannabis consumption, you're decreasing alcohol consumption. And as many of us know, alcohol is linked to violent crime. So you decrease alcohol use, increase cannabis consumption, that actually leads to decreased violent crime. This study will be made available through the town of Acton. Again, was put out by the University of Texas. Opioid overdoses decreased by 25% in states with legal cannabis. This was proven by Johns Hopkins University in a study. This is huge. As we know, Massachusetts is facing a major opioid crisis, and cannabis is able to combat that. There's no correlation between home values and their proximity to cannabis dispensaries. Again, this has been proven by a University of Wisconsin study. We can make that available to you through the town of Acton. Why should Acton allow a cannabis dispensary? In our first full year of sales at a combined recreational and medical dispensary, we're anticipated to do sales between 10 and 15 million. So this means Acton as a town is going to get 6% of recreational sales and 3% of medical. That comes out to a figure of $550,000 to $800,000 contributed to your town's budget. Again, that's previously unseen funds given back to your town. Nature's Remedy is also going to be an active and positive member in your community. We're going to support the community with donations to charities and jobs, not minimum wage jobs. We're actually paying our customer service agents between $15 and $20 an hour with full benefits. So just in closing here, a ban does not stop marijuana from coming to your town, as we recognize tonight. The ban does stop this tax revenue. And again, that number is $550,000 to $800,000 in previously unseen funds that you are voting against with this ban. So on behalf of Nature's Remedy, we ask you to please vote no on the ban of the sale of recreational marijuana for your community, for the town of Acton. Thanks.
Thank you. Before I turn to the recommendations of the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee, I'll report the results of the vote on Article 5. I'm not going to bother to, oh, we do have it up on the screen. 80% of the voters voted in favor of Article 5. It required a 2/3 majority, so therefore I declare that the vote has, the 2/3 majority vote has been achieved. We will now turn to the Selectmen's recommendation on the non-binding resolution under Article 6.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Board of Selectmen voted to not recommend approval of Article 6 because the board considers the Article 5 temporary moratorium through 2018 to be the more reasonable option. As I explained in my remarks about Article 5, a moratorium through 2018 will allow the town more time to study the final recreational marijuana regulations after they come out in 2018, and with that knowledge, consider in a more thoughtful, informed manner what further action, whether zoning amendments or something else, might be appropriate with respect to recreational marijuana. And finally, we believe that the moratorium option might better take into consideration the varied opinions in the recreational marijuana debate that the Acton's close vote on the 2016 state ballot and the debate tonight reflects. Thank you.
Thank you. The Finance Committee?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee does not recommend this article.
Thank you. I'm now going to open it up for debate, but very briefly, because we still have several articles to go forward with. And as I have now stated several times, this is a non-binding resolution. I recognize the speaker at microphone number 1.
I am Mike Farquhar in Agawam Road. I've heard Colorado bandied around a bit tonight. And Mr. Moderator, I need to mention the name of a very famous politician from another state. John Hickenlooper gleefully signed the legalization of marijuana in Colorado. 3 years later, he said he wished he had not because of the kind of auto accidents that are occurring on Colorado's borders, particularly at night. Now, he's not my favorite governor because he also signed a horrific bill about guns. But you all just need to recognize that Colorado may have been the marijuana mecca, but there were ugly, deadly consequences. Thank you.
Recognize the speaker at microphone number 3.
No, this is Charlie Cudlick, Paul Revere Road. This article is about letting us vote. It's not about banning anything. So I don't really understand this presentation we just saw. It's irrelevant. I think the selectmen may be convinced to change their mind based on the vote that we are about to take here tonight. And one more thing. As to the potential revenue from sales of marijuana, that's an interesting thought. Some counties in Nevada allow prostitution. How much can we get from that?
Thank you, Mr. Cadillac. I'm tempted to ask you a question, but I think I will pass, given the late hour. I will recognize the speaker at microphone number 1.
Hi, my name is Corinne Hogseth. I live on Seminole Road. In the slides that we were just shown, it said legalized cannabis does not increase crime. The footnote that you can barely see, but I looked at earlier, indicates the study is based on data from 1990 to 2006, well before recreational marijuana was legalized in any state. That study is specific to medical cannabis. More recent information from Colorado suggests that crime has increased since the legalization of recreational marijuana in that state. According to the Colorado Bureau of Investigation report, 2016 Crime in Colorado, Colorado's crime rate increased by more than 11 times the 0.3% increase reported in the nation's 30 largest cities. Colorado's crime rate spiked by 3.4%, fueled by a rise in auto thefts, rape, robbery, and murder. Last year's number of homicides, 189, marked a 10% increase over the number of murders in 2015. Some Colorado lawmakers, police, and legal experts partly blame the medical marijuana industry, claiming that it has lured transients and criminals to the state. According to Colorado State Representative Cole Wist, quote, "I think it would be naive not to believe that the increase in drug use is not having an impact on the crime rate. I think it would also be naive to assume that there would be no rise in crime in Acton should we permit recreational marijuana stores. Most of the communities surrounding Acton have already put bans or moratorium in place, so Acton could become a magnet for drug users. I would also imagine the stores themselves would be likely targets of crime, as they are cash-only establishments." Thank you.
I recognize the speaker at microphone number 4.
Mr. Moderator, I move the question.
I have a second. I will call for the vote. Again, it's a 2/3 vote. All those in favor of the motion to cut off debate, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Joanne?
All in favor of cutting off debate, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say nay. The motion does carry here.
Okay, it carries here as well. So the debate has been cut off. We will now vote on the motion related to the non-binding resolution. This requires a majority vote, but I think, again, we're going to use the electronic voting mechanism. So I would ask people here in the auditorium to please turn your clickers on by pressing the orange button gently. And I will first ask the folks on my right-hand side section of the auditorium, please go ahead and vote. I would now ask those in the center part of the auditorium to please cast your vote. Again, A is for yes, E is for no. And those on my left-hand side, please go ahead and cast your votes. Everyone seems to have succeeded without a question. Joanne, in your room?
We have no base.
Oh, goodness. Oh, goodness. See if they can refresh by pressing the blue button.
That's not working. Oh, wait.
Wait.
Still no base.
Still no base. And we have someone at least here with an issue, who's raising our hand right here. And
They must be. Good now? Okay, we now have base.
Okay. Okay. So we're going to do, you've done electronic voting in the other room, and now you're moving to the teller-counted vote, Joanne? We got this. I think we're going to be able to do that, yeah. The timing is going to be a little, because I want to keep moving to Article 2 now. So, but yeah, I think we can.
On your command. They will not until you say. But here's a thought. See this? I'm thinking you ought to just leave them where they are. And I'm thinking as if they're leaving the overflow, if they have any extra, they can just hand them to the people that don't have them. That way it's less, I would keep it over,
Otherwise, we're going to waste another 10 minutes.
right.
Yeah. Okay, while we're waiting for the vote, we're going to move to Article 2. Folks of which who have been waiting very patiently. Okay, I will read the motion under Article 2. This is a somewhat longer motion, and I will remind folks that this requires a 2/3 majority. Mr. Foster moves that, 1, the town authorize all actions set forth in the article. 2, the town appropriate $800,000 to pay costs of the acquisition of the real property consisting of approximately 10.9 acres located as 161 Newtown Road and depicted on Assessor's Map D3 as Parcel 11, consisting of lots 1 and 3 as shown on Middlesex South Registry of Deeds Plan 125 of 2017 as set forth in the article, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto. 3, to meet this appropriation, $770,000 shall be transferred from the open space set-aside portion of the Community Preservation Fund balance, and $30,000 shall be transferred from free cash. And 4, the town authorize the selectmen, the town manager, the treasurer, and the Conservation Commission to take all actions within their respective jurisdictions specified in or consistent with the article. Do I have a second? Second. Motion has been made and seconded. Mr. Foster, at long last, to your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening, everyone, and as the moderator introduced, my name is Walter Foster, and I currently serve as the chair of the Community Preservation Committee. And with me tonight are the committee members and our guest, Bill Aylesbury, Joe Will, Amy Green, Peter Berry, Ray Jacoby, Nancy Cobb, Tori Byer, Greg Johnson, Dean Charter, Carolyn Kilpatrick, and with us presenting tonight is Andy McGee. Just a special thanks to Susan Mitchell-Hart, who recently went off the committee and has dedicated a lot of time and effort. Thank you, Susan. Thanks. Oh, thank you. So the Community Preservation Committee is responsible for the administration of the Community Preservation Fund. It funds projects which support the acquisition, creation, preservation of open space, historic resources, community housing, and land for recreational space. We've kind of zipped through a few here, sorry. So tonight I can present you what we consider to be the crown jewel in Acton's Emerald Necklace. And it is a linchpin of a property that joins some great swaths of land to complete some preservation and open space. It's the Heinrich land of 161 Newton Road. It's approximately 11 plus or minus acres. We currently have already set aside from past town meetings an appropriation for open space set aside funds for purchases just like this that stands at $2.3 million. The purchase would of course leave about $1.5 million in that fund. The CPC monies are only used up to a certain point, and that's to the appraised value of the property. And in this case, the appraised value was greater than the purchase price was greater than the appraised value. So there'll be $770,000 funds that we're asking you to appropriate from the Community Preservation Fund. And there's $30,000 in donations to be expected from the Acton Conservation Trust. And we did receive in hand a letter that those funds have already been raised. Any additional costs, such as the closing costs, legal costs, and the conservation restriction costs, will be paid out of a general fund from the town. As we said, it's 11 plus or minus acres of parcel. It abuts Grassy Pond and Grassy Pond Conservation Land. It is consistent with many of the town plans. It has a very high open space value as connecting an environmental and a water quality protection. And it is really the keystone parcel linking both the Anderson Boulette lands with the Grassy Pond and the Nagog Hill lands. This is a photo of some of the areas in Grassy Pond. And I'm going to introduce just the overview of the map, and then Andy McGee will finish up the presentation. This is the plot of land. You'll see that the deep black outline is the entire plot of land. Will be purchasing what is Lot 1 and Lot 3. Lot number 2 is the carve-out where the house remains. And this map varies very slightly from what you see in your warrant article, if your bleary eyes can look at that warrant article at this late at night. But I just wanted to point that out, that through some last-minute negotiations with the landowner. The configuration of those lots have changed ever so slightly, and what we're proposing to purchase tonight is lots number 1 and lots number 3. And with that, I'll hand it off to Andy McGee.
Great, thank you, Waller, and thank you, Mr. Moderator, and thank you, Town Meeting. Again, my name is Andy McGee. I am the chair of the Open Space Committee. It was the Open Space Committee that brought this proposal to the Community Preservation Committee as well as to the Board of Selectmen. I'm going to back up one slide. This parcel, or the Rhinowich parcel, has been on our radar, if you will, for probably 10 years. It was on our previous open space plan as a priority parcel. It's on our current priority plan, open space. It is a key parcel that we really never thought we'd ever have the opportunity to purchase. But I really have to start by thanking the Rhinowich family for working with us. They wanted to preserve this property, but there were a number of family members, and we had a variety of negotiation over the last year or two, but they really worked with us to bring this to town meeting and to bring it to preservation. The slides you see here, the photos you see here, the aerial photograph is looking down on the property from above Grassy Pond. The white pine forest is the upland portion of the site, and then off to the left, we're purchasing approximately half of that wetland off to the left. And then further off to the left on that aerial photograph is the Grassy Pond conservation areas. The photograph on the right-hand side is a ground level view looking from the Grassy Pond conservation area to the parcel we're buying. It's that white pine forest on the other side of the pond there. And then the bottom photograph is also taken from the Grassy Pond conservation area, looking from the boardwalk that exists. If the folks have walked this boardwalk, it's a gorgeous little section that goes through the wetland here, and sort of that pine forest in the distance is the parcel we're buying. As Walter said, this is the parcel. It was a single parcel. The owners had subdivided it. They had gotten approval from the Conservation Commission to put a house on each of the lots. They had gotten approval from the Board of Health to put septic systems in. They were ready to go with 2 houses on this lot. And as I say, we did not think this would be an opportunity for us. But again, in working with the family and working with the town, we were able to come to an agreement to purchase this property. As you'll see, there is an easement across Lot 2, and that again was part of the agreement with the owners, so that we can bring a trail system across. This is the current layout of the necklace that Walter referred to. To the left is the Bulette properties and the Anderson parcel, which we purchased a couple years ago with CPC funds. The Newtown Road parcel, or the Rhinowich parcel, is that center area in black, and then off to the right is the Grassy Pond conservation areas, and then further off to the right is the Nagog Hill conservation areas. As the crow flies, this is probably about 2.5 miles in terms of trail systems, probably 5 miles of trail, interrupted by this piece in the middle. In purchasing this piece, we convert the trail system into a perfect link into the parcels. We also we basically create a situation where approximately a quarter, maybe a little more than a quarter of Grassy Pond is protected from any further development. Between the existing Grassy Pond conservation areas and the proposed parcel, we've really protected a significant portion of this pond. And this is a unique pond. This is really truly a bog in the sense of what you would see more typically in Maine. We have a couple of bogs in Acton, but for the most part we have kettle hole ponds that don't have this type of environment where we have vegetation growing off from the side, a unique habitat. We have a variety of unique vegetation here. So from a natural resources perspective, it's a very valuable parcel. From a passive recreation perspective, it's also a very valuable parcel. So as I say, we're very excited to be able to have purchased this. And again, here's this aerial looking at the parcel, and you can see that vegetation lining the shoreline. That's sphagnum moss and a variety of other wetland species, but again, typical of a bog environment rather than a typical pond like Walden Pond, for instance, if you're familiar with that. And this is what we're purchasing at Lot 1 and Lot 3 are the areas that we're purchasing. And if you can see on the very far right-hand corner, that's the Grassy Pond Boardwalk. If any folks have been out there, it's a beautiful vista looking across the pond. This trail system will now cut through all 3 of these lots and bring you around to that trail system. The purchase of this, as I said, this was very high on our open space plan list. It has been recommended unanimously by the Board of Selectmen, unanimously by all these committees, Finance Committee, the Community Preservation Committee, the Conservation Commission, and obviously the Open Space Committee. So we ask you to please vote in favor of this. The monies have been set aside. We have the money, we have the ability to purchase it, and I would ask that you please vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGee, and thank you, Mr. Foster. Mr. McGee, you may have already spoken on behalf of the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee, but I will ask them if they have any further comments to make on their recommendation. Do the Selectmen have any further comment?
I don't know if CPC has microphones down there. Mr. Barry?
Selectmen voted unanimously to recommend that town meeting adopt this article.
And the Finance Committee?
Finance Committee did the same, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. I will now open it up to debate unless we still don't have a tally count on the vote on Article 6. Yes, we do. Okay, I'm told we do. So let's put that up so that we can dispose of that motion here first. So Article 6, the non-binding resolution is carried by a majority of 76% in favor and 24 against. So the motion carries. Okay, I will now open up the motion under Article 2 for debate. Anyone wishing to speak, please approach a microphone. I'll first recognize the speaker at microphone number 1.
David Black, Central Street. I support acquisition of property. I want to ask about something technical about how we pay for it. It sounds like the appraised value of the property that enables us to tap the community preservation funds is based on both lots being buildable. Is that correct?
Mr. Foster?
Correct.
Okay. It looks like the last minute change removed the frontage from Lot 3. Does that render Lot 3 unbuildable in a way that would change the assessed value of the land?
Mr. Foster, do you?
Yeah.
Can you answer that? Or
I think I can. It makes no change, meaning that only that single home can remain and be present there. There is no further development that can happen on lot.
That's not an answer to the question I asked. May I rephrase, Mr. Moderator?
Well, we'll try to get the answer, but you may rephrase, sir.
Okay. As I understand Town of Acton zoning, a buildable lot is required to have street frontage. As I understand the map that was presented, we have a last-minute change so that Lot 3 has no street frontage. Has Lot 3 become unbuildable in a fashion that affects the appraised value of the land?
Okay, so Lot 3 has no frontage, and Lot 3 will be purchased by the town. So there will never be any building on Lot 3. Are you referring to Lot 2?
No, I'm referring to Lot 3, and I'm pointing, let's see, maybe I ought to have a private discussion with Roland Bartle involved. The concern is that we're taking $770,000 from open space funds on the basis that Lot 1 plus Lot 3 can both be built on an appraised of $770,000. Did you just configure Lot 3 to be unbuildable so that the land value might be closer to $500,000 or less because there's now only one opportunity to build, not two?
Yeah, Andy.
Mr. McGee?
Yeah, and I understand your question. There is no frontage the way we've reconfigured it. When the appraisal was done and when the building lots were approved, there was 2 separate lots. In the subsequent negotiations with the owners, they were, for instance, asking for $10,000 for the easement across the property. We were looking at that narrow connection that made frontage on the street possible and said, gee, you know, we really don't want that little strip of land because there's houses on either side. All we own then is the trees that fall on those houses, so we made a trade-off. But it was post-negotiation. It was post the development. So if we turned around and said now it's undevelopable, we would not vote this tonight. The owners would go back to their original approval and build 2 houses on here because they'd go back to it. We're only doing it for our purposes, subsequent to the appraisal. And to Walter's point, both of them become undevelopable lots once we purchase them because by definition under the CPC regulations, we have to put a conservation restriction on it. So the second we vote yes on this, both of these lots become undevelopable. So all we've done is basically sort of preempted that by doing some negotiation with the current landowners saying, you know, in the end, this is the parcel that we want.
Okay.
I hope that helps.
Thank you. Do you have a follow-up question?
Sounds like it's okay, just the...
Why don't I give you a minute to think about it, and I'll recognize the speaker at microphone number 2.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Phil DeCesar from Musket Drive. I too have questions about the value of this land. Looking at the town assessment for the entire parcel, Lot 1, 2, and 3, prior to the current owner subdividing it, the town appraised all 3 parcels of land for a total of $338,500. Now, according to town record with the town field card, Lot 2 land value is currently appraised at $288,500. So if you do simple math here and you say, okay, all 3 of them last year were $338,000, and this year, Lot 2 is $288,000. That tells you Lot 1 and Lot 3 are appraised at $50,000. So I don't understand where $700,000 came from for the purchase of this land. This land also, 50% of Lot 1 and Lot 3 are not only in wetlands, they're in the 100 flood zone plain. Now, I understand that's great for this purpose, but the point I'm making here is that I cannot see how even this land could even be sold for $500,000, much less $700,000.
Mr. McGee, do you want to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Yes, I do. The appraisal that you're looking at was for a single lot. So, well, the whole parcel, but the whole parcel is currently one lot. This lots 1 and 3 is from the owner's plans of their proposed subdivision. This is as right subdivision, or well, I'm sorry, I'm not thinking of the term, but by right. So the assessment is simply that there is a lot here called Lot 1, 161 Newtown Road, which is comprised for our purposes of lots 1, 2, and 3, but for the town's assessment purpose, it is only one lot, and that's what you're reading. These...
Wait, please.
I'm sorry.
Please let Mr. McGee finish, and then if you have a follow-up, you may approach a microphone and use that.
When we do an appraisal, it's done by an appraiser who is an independent entity, like a civil engineer. They have their own stamp, et cetera. The owners went, we went actually, to appraisal service and said, tell us what these lots would sell for on the open market. They had these lots on the market at a considerably higher price than what we're paying. The appraisal came in and said it was at $375 per lot. That's where we get to or $370 per lot. That's however we get to $770 is the appraised value of lots 1 and lot 3. We could only offer the appraised value. They were asking considerably more for each of the 2 parcels in the 400 plus range. They also had an interest in preserving the land, but they wanted to get their value out of the land as well. So there was a bit of negotiation back and forth, but in the end, they dropped their price, and we came to an agreed price at $400,000 per lot. We would get $770,000 of that from the Open Space Committee, and we would find $30,000 elsewhere. But these lots, believe me, in Acton, on this street, will go for $400,000 apiece. Down the street, $575,000. This is what these lots are worth. And again, that's an independent appraisal. You don't have to trust me, but there's an independent appraiser out there who is staking his reputation on that these were at combined $770,000.
Sir, do you have a follow-up question or comment?
I have a follow-up comment. The numbers that I quoted here are from town record. And what I'm referring to was the land value for the entire parcel, lot 1, 2, and 3, last year, 14 acres, was assessed at $338,500. Less than half of what you're selling,
But
buying it for.
that's an undeveloped, I'm sorry, Mr. Moderator.
So secondly, in terms of development, we all know that they're protected by wetlands, and a good portion of all this land is wetlands. And, as I mentioned, also in a 100-year floodplain. I'm not questioning the purchase of the land, I'm questioning the price you're paying. I think the price is way too high. And now that it's been further reconfigured, that Lot 3 doesn't even have access to a street, that lot must be worth substantially less than the appraiser provided you.
But, well, again, you asked a couple of questions. Mr. Moderator, Mayor?
Very briefly, please.
Okay.
I'd like to try to wrap this up.
Again, I don't question that the appraised value of the entire parcel of land by the town, the assessed value was 300 and something thousand. Because assessment is done based on what's there. Appraisals are done on what's legally there. So the appraisal is based on there being houses on these. So they appraised the lot and they said, a house builder will pay you $375,000 for lot 1, and they'll pay you $375,000 for lot 3, and they'll build a house on those lots. And then the assessor will come back and assess this at a much higher price because now we have 3 houses, not 1 house on the property. The assessor is only assessing the property based on the land and 1 house, not the land and 3 houses. The other point is about the wetlands. This has already been approved for 2 houses, 2 very large houses. The septic systems have already been approved. For those folks who, and I know there's a good number of you that have taken the hike out there that the Acton Conservation Trust has led, you can see the scars from just where the septic system test pits were. The septic systems are both designed and approved, but they're mounted systems. This will be a clear cut of the parcels down to the almost the wetland line, not all the way to the wetland line, but there will be 2 houses on here, believe me.
I recognize the speaker at microphone number 3.
Kate Crosby, Half Moon Hill, Acton, Mass. I'd like to call the question.
Do I have a second? Second. Okay, the question has been called and seconded. We will vote on the motion to cut off debate. Joanne, do you still have folks in your room, or have they all left? I think we're all here now. We're all one big happy family in here. Great. Okay. Then I'm going to try and do this just by a straight voice vote. All those in favor of cutting off debate, please say aye.
Excuse me, Mr. Moderator.
Oh.
We do have people here.
Oh, well, you didn't, you must have been asleep in there, Joanne.
No. It was yet another technical difficulty.
Oh. Fraught with that this evening. Okay, I'm going to still ask for a voice vote in here. All those in favor of the motion to cut off debate, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. It certainly carries in here. Joanne?
All in favor of cutting off debate, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say nay. Motion does carry.
Motion carries virtually unanimously, so we will now vote on the motion on Article 2. This again requires a 2/3 majority, so we will use clickers. Joanne, does everyone in your room now have clickers? I would hope.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, terrific. So this should go a little bit more quickly. So I would ask everyone to turn on their clickers, pressing the orange button. I think we may just try and do this, everyone in this room at the same time. I think we can manage that given the sparser population now than earlier. So we'll open the voting window for 25 seconds. You may cast your vote. Press A for a yes or aye vote. Press E for a no vote. I declare the voting window is closed. Oh, we still have problems with a no base. Can you reset and try again? Joanne, do you have any problems in your room?
I think everyone was able
Good.
to vote? No?
We're all set over here? The results of the vote are 271 aye, 84 nay. The vote carries the required two-thirds majority as it is an 89% majority. The motion carries by the required two-thirds amount. Thank you. We're going to try, I've just spoken briefly with the selectmen. They would like us to try to persevere through the rest of the evening. I see many people leaving. I really think we can take care of these next couple of motions here very quickly. I would encourage you to stay if you can at all possible. We'll move to Article 3. The motion is Mr. Jacoby moves that the town adopt the zoning bylaw map amendments as set forth in the article. Do I have a second? Motion has been made and seconded. Mr. Jacoby, to your motion, please.
I do have a point of order. When we voted earlier about non-town town meeting members,
Can you,
a representative here from the plaza that may be able
if
to
it's
answer
required,
questions?
Excuse
we'll
me,
vote.
Mr. Moderator.
Yes.
Just letting you know that we are clearing out this area and all the voters will be coming down. Anyone who's staying will be coming down.
Okay, terrific, because most everyone here is leaving.
I guess, Mr. And that's not clear that it's going to be necessary?
Right, we technically did not vote them in, we only voted
That's correct.
specific individuals.
That's why I was
So
bringing it up.
if it is required to have those individuals speak, we'll take a very quick vote.
Very good, thank you.
And it might, I mean, we've now got people moving in two different directions, with some people hopefully coming into the auditorium. But I would prefer that you begin your remarks.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. And for those of you that have remained, I really appreciate it. Thank you. This is an important article, and it was not our intent to have this at 11:30 at night. I did want to mention, as part of this article, how do I move this thing forward? Is this? Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. This article is involves the rezoning of the Brookside Shops from residence R8 to a limited business. As you can see here in the center, this plaza is where the Staples and Trader Joe's is. It is currently zoned R8 or residential. I did want to mention that there were two representatives of the owner and the on-site manager here. The representative of the owner had to leave. She drove down here from New York to be at this meeting, but because of the lateness of the hour, she had to leave about an hour ago. So she apologized that she couldn't stay and answer any questions. We also have a representative who's the current on-site manager of the property. The impetus of this has been longstanding. where this plaza is. It actually came before town meeting this time because of a request from the owner. There was a change in ownership at the plaza about a year and a half ago. In their interest in terms of continuing to develop the plaza, they approached the town actually on two issues. One was an operating issue, and they came to the Board of Selectmen about a year ago, and then they, as part of that process, said, how can we get the zoning in line with its use? And hence, we've had hearings, and we've decided to bring it forward. The zoning will bring the current site basically in compliance with its current use. Its current use is totally non-conforming. Since this article had been considered at town meeting in the past. It did not pass because it requires 2/3. There were a number of long-standing issues with the abutters. With this particular plaza, they had not been addressed. And since then, with the new ownership, there's been a very, very proactive working relationship between the town, the abutters, and the new owners to address any of the issues in terms of the site plan. More importantly, not just addressing those issues, but putting into place a process, a structure to communicate with any new issues that come up. And I'm happy to say I think they've been very, very, very responsive. And I think the neighbors and the abutters have been, I'm going to say, pleasantly surprised because the change in ownership has changed the whole tone in terms of how we work with that. So I don't think we're going to need it, but if there was any questions to the owner or the person who manages the site, they're here to answer those questions. Okay, why do my slides disappear? Okay. Some history for, I don't know if this goes back, but Brookside Shops were established about 15 years ago. There were, actually, it was developed under a grandfathering because back in the late 80s, early 90s, the town looked at all of 2A. Prior to that time, from the Concord line to the Littleton line, there was a 500-foot buffer on either side of 2A, and it was all zoned general business. As part of the master plan, the town said, we're not sure, we'd like to see it basically one long commercial strip, and they started to rezone certain parcels. This was one. This parcel at the time was a working farm. For those of you that have been here for a while, it was the Deduca farm. There was a farm stand on it. It got rezoned R8. The current owners invoked grandfathering, as they had a right to do, to develop it under general business. There was some litigation. The owner prevailed. Brookside Shops got built. The zoning freeze expired. So when it was frozen, that was developed under a general business, there was a site plan that was developed and approved, it got built. After 8 years, however, that zoning expired, and now it's non-conforming and it is residential. So this makes it very, very difficult for that business to operate as a shopping center in that property. Okay, the severe nonconformity, use some quick examples. Signs aren't technically permitted on that property. It's residential. You have to go to the ZBA. Restaurants are not allowed. I've heard a number of friends of mine saying, why can't we have a restaurant in there? Why can we have some outdoor seating? Not allowed. When the plaza was originally developed, there was a restaurant in there. It went out of business because the zoning, you could not replace it with another restaurant. Any kind of extensions or changes, if Trader Joe's wanted to expand into contiguous space, et cetera, there are fairly significant restrictions, and they have to go through a zoning process and a special permit process. Also, I think the most important thing, the business climate has changed rather dramatically. I know in the last couple of weeks, I don't know if you read the Beacon, there was two articles on the changing face of retail, and this is exactly what they're faced with. The current owner and us as a town under 2020 would like to see certain types of activities go in there and develop. They're severely restricted. There's two businesses in the last year that have now gone out of business or moved out. One was Eastern Mountain Sports, the other one was Cambridge Savings Bank. As an example of the kind of issue, Cambridge Savings Bank, another bank could go in there, Bank of America, except they couldn't put up a sign. And that puts, you laugh, okay, but now think about this. You have the owner then saying, trying to attract somebody. Someone comes in and says, oh yeah, this would be great. Oh, but guess what? You can't have a sign. Do you think they're gonna come in there? They're gonna go down the street. So there's some competitive issues there. Eastern Mountain Sports went out of business. Another retail establishment come in, but you do have the issue of the signage, as an example. No restaurants can go in there. So it really does handcuff. So we have two choices. Either we change the zoning and call a spade, and it is a retail center that I think by and large the town likes that center. It likes Trader Joe's, it likes Staples. If we want that to thrive and not become a blight and have boarded up retail in there and give the owner the ability to develop it, that's why we need to change the zoning. The other alternative, I'm being a little facetious, is it has to be torn down and a housing development has to go in. I don't think that's likely. It's likely to happen. So that's the, any questions? I'm done with my presentation.
Thank you. I will ask the Board of Selectmen for their recommendation.
The Board of Selectmen supports this article.
Thank you. The Finance Committee?
The Brookside shops on Great Road serve an important role in the economic life in our community. It provides much valuable goods and services, unique products, high-quality goods, and great customer service. This problematic zoning severely handicaps existing tenants and any future growth plans and prohibits classes of tenants, such as restaurants or coffee shops, from the economic mix at Brookside. Brookside is clearly a commercial development, not a residential property. We need to fix this zoning tonight. We support this article.
Thank you. I will now open it out to town meeting members for comments or questions. I recognize the speaker at microphone number 1.
Larry Knaw, Betsy Ross Circle. I'm the chair of the Economic Development Committee. That committee unanimously supports this article that aligns the zoning of this plaza with the way it is being used. I have some other words here, but they've already been mentioned by Mr. Jacoby or Mr. Majors. So I'm only going to mention one of those words, restaurants. We urge town meeting to join us in supporting a zoning change that reflects reality and allows for the expansion of the business community in Acton. Thank you very much.
I recognize the speaker at microphone number 2.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Mike Farquhar, Agawam Road. My memory dims a little bit with age, but a year or 2 or maybe 3, there was a bitter debate in this very room with one or more of the abutters, people who had lived in those houses when the farm was there, and then the shopping center came. And there was a big question. I remember angry words in this room about banging dumpsters early in the morning. You said there's been great harmony has been brought. Tell us about that, please.
Mr. Jacoby?
I'm glad you brought that up. It was about actually a year and a half ago, if I'm not mistaken, regular town meeting, this came up and there was a lot of acrimony as to what was going on. And it was born out of frustration on the part of the abutters in terms of the then owner not following up on its commitments to address those sorts of issues. And there was anger toward the town that we were not enforcing it. And quite honestly, there was some justification. The dumpsters, the clanging dumpsters was an example that there's an ongoing issue. The current owner, as well as the planning board, has met with both the owners, I'm not going to mention, and abutters, not going to mention names, to address those issues. There was issues of the gate opening and trucks coming back and forth. The current owners have put in a real-time video system that now monitors, sends them emails when a truck comes in there when they're not supposed to, and they're communicating that with the town. So we're proactively figuring out when something's going on, so when a butter doesn't have to take pictures, come to town saying, do you see what's going on at 4 o'clock in the morning? Why isn't somebody doing something about this? That was one example. The gate that has been put up. Plantings, they've addressed an issue of planting. There was a fairly long, for lack of a better term, punch list that we developed with the abutters that has been met, because when this first came up and came to the planning board, I, as chairman, said, I'm not taking this to town meeting until we know that these issues have been addressed. Now, one of the critical things was a change in ownership. That change in ownership has been rather dramatic in terms of addressing. If you go over there now, there's a new fence in the back of the plaza between that they were not required to put up, by the way. This wasn't just saying, okay, I'm meeting the site plans. They actually said, we want to be a good neighbor. Also plantings. There was a meeting this morning with the owners and the abutters to go over that to say, is everything okay? I had the planning board staff reach out to the abutters and some of the neighbors saying, is this right? Do you have any objections? And they said they were okay.
Thank you. I see no one else standing, so we will vote on the motion under Article 3. Again, this is a zoning amendment, so it requires a 2/3 vote. We will use the clickers. I believe everybody's in the room now. As I see, the assistant moderator is now here. So I assume there is no one left in the other room. So please turn your clickers on. And if we can put the 25 seconds up, we will open the voting window now. Please cast your votes. And I declare the voting window is now closed. So we will tabulate the votes. I assume no one had problems with their clickers. Tabulation of the vote is 96% vote in favor, so it clearly achieves the required 2/3 majority, so I declare the motion has passed. We will now move to Article 4, which is to amend the zoning bylaw for the shopping center parking. Ms. Ying moves that the town adopt the zoning bylaw amendment as set forth in the article. Do I have a second? Motion is made and seconded. Ms. Ying, to your motion, please. There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Thank you for staying. Also, excuse my voice tonight. So I would like to provide some of the background of this article. As we all know, the consumers' shopping habits have changed profoundly and permanently as they shop online more and look for deals. The retail stores face the biggest challenges. We have been seeing more service and the restaurant moving to spaces where retail stores were previously occupied. So this proposed zoning change will better define the definition of a shopping center and its minimum parking requirements in order to reflect today's market conditions. The zoning bylaw contains a table of a minimum parking space requirement by use type. Currently, there's a category which classifies shopping centers with 2 or more retail stores. The zoning bylaw calculates minimum parking requirements for a shopping center are based on 3 spaces per 1,000 square feet NFA. And this slide actually is the same as the previous one, but I highlight the changes in red. As you see, this article reflects this market change by modifying the language from shopping center with 2 or more retail stores to shopping center with at least 2 of the following use: restaurant, retail, store, and services. Here I'm going to show you some illustration how the new version works. For instance, there's a shopping center which was occupied by 2 retail stores. Now, 1 retail store moves out under the current zoning. In order to achieve the same minimum parking space requirement as a shopping center, it needs to be replaced by another retail store. But under the new version, this shopping center can be occupied by 2 retail stores, or 1 retail store and a restaurant, or 2 restaurants, or mixed use of a retail store and services. So what if we don't change the definition for shopping center and the current version of minimum parking space requirement? It will require to calculate parking space individually for each business unit. So here's an example, Nega Mall. Right now we have 2 retail tenants, Dollar Store and the Shavaz Super Bazaar, and plus about 12 business units. Those are restaurants, services, and office use, etc. Since there's 2 retails, this shopping center is classified in the shopping center parking standards. Based on 3 spaces per 1,000 square feet NFA, the minimum parking requirement is 157 spaces. How many parking spaces are available in this plaza? 355. So currently, this plaza is compliant. But if one of the retail stores leaves Nega Plaza and it's replaced by a service or a restaurant, under the existing zoning, the plaza would no longer be categorized as a shopping center parking. Parking must be recalculated based on each individual use on the site. So therefore, 323 space will be required, plus whatever the space required for the new service or the restaurant. So how many existing parking spaces available at this plaza? 355. So it's very likely the new proposed use could bring the minimum parking standard into non-compliance. But under the proposed zoning amendment, the plaza will still qualify as a shopping center parking, and its minimum requirement space remains at 157. There will be no issue with the minimum parking requirement because the proposed zoning change will include restaurant and service use within shopping center parking. And this concludes my presentation for Article 4, and the Planning Board recommended this article. Thank you.
Thank you. Do the Board of Selectmen have a recommendation on this motion?
The Board of Selectmen recommends this article.
And the Finance Committee?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee voted to support passage of this article.
Thank you. Open it up to town meeting members for comments or questions. Recognize the speaker at microphone number 1.
Acton. I want to thank you so much for putting numbers to it, because that's what I've been asking for months. I really appreciate that when you ask for us to okay a change, that we see what the impact is. Even if it's just one example, it really helps. Thank you.
I see no one else standing, so we will vote on this. Again, this is a zoning amendment, bylaw amendment, so it requires a 2/3 vote, so please turn your clickers on. I will declare the voting window is open. Please cast your vote. press A for aye or yes, E for no or nay. And I now declare the voting window closed, and we will tabulate the vote. And we see that the motion carries virtually unanimously, certainly achieves the required two-thirds vote. Thank you. We're almost done, but we do have one other piece of business, which is the consent calendar. These are Articles 7 through 11. I will first read the consent motion and then discuss the procedure quickly for handling the consent agenda. The motion is Ms. Adachi moves that the town take up the 5 articles in the consent calendar on pages 20 through 26 of the warrant, Articles 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Do I have a second? Second. Motion has been made and seconded. The procedure will follow as the usual one under the consent agenda. I will read the number and title of each consent article. If someone wishes to hold the article from consent, they need to say hold in a loud voice. If 2 or more say hold, then the article will be held from consent and discussed and voted on separately. After Article 11 is read, we will then vote on all remaining articles on the consent agenda, and then go back to any articles that may have been placed on hold. So we will now move to the listing of the articles as soon as I find them here. Article 7, amend general bylaws, department revolving funds. Article 8, amend general bylaws, animal control officer enforcement authority. Abandon road easement, Faulkner Hill Road. Accept sidewalk easement, High Street. I heard one hold. I did not hear more than one. Okay, there's more than one hold. So Article 10 is held. Article 11, accept access easement, Mohegan Lane. Okay. We will now vote on the 4 of the 5 articles, Articles 7, 8, 9, and 11. Again, some of these require two-thirds vote, so we'll do these again by clicker. All those in favor of the articles and motions thereto on the consent agenda, please vote A or I, and those opposed vote E or no. The voting window is now open. And now I declare the voting window is closed, and we will tabulate the vote on the consent agenda. And then we will turn to Article 10. Are you Article 10? Are you Article 10? Are you doing Article 10? No. No. Who is doing Article 10? We have the result. The consent agenda again achieves the required two-thirds majority, 98% voting in favor. So the consent agenda is passed by the required two-thirds. We'll now move to Article 10. I believe at least several people held that. The way I like to handle this, if at all possible, is if there is a particular question, rather than go through a presentation on this, if someone has a question or a comment to make on this, I would ask that they approach the mic now and do so. Speaker at microphone number 2.
Yeah, thank you. I'm from Adeline Way. We have a sidewalk there. I think it's a lovely sidewalk. It's a new sidewalk. It doesn't look at all like it's within where the easement ought to be, according to what I see in the materials that were sent out in the mail. It doesn't look the same as what's in the deeds registry, and so I don't like this proposal.
I've actually made a minor faux pas here. I neglected to put the motion under Article 10 into play. So let me back up and do that, and then we'll assume that people have heard what you had to say. But let me make the motion. Mr. Chang moves that the town authorize the acquisition of the easement as set forth in the article. Do I have a second? Second. Okay. Now, can someone answer the question that has been posed here in terms of the concern? Someone from the Board of Selectmen, please.
I was not aware that there was a sidewalk there. Can someone town staff comment on that fact?
Do we have anybody from town staff? Roland, Mr. Bartle. You do not live in town, but you've already been voted in, so you may speak.
The easement is shown on the plan where the sidewalk is, from what I recall from the development plans. And I believe there was an inspection done that showed, that showed that the sidewalk is built where it was supposed to be built. I'm not aware that there is a discrepancy. As I said, there was an inspection done, and that part was not flagged as anything that was off. It's kind of too bad you're not bringing this up tonight. If you had contacted us like earlier, we could have worked it out and kind of looked at the plans together and done a site visit. But here tonight to say yes affirmatively or no, it's kind of difficult.
Recognize the speaker at microphone number 2.
It's Mike Farquhar again, Agawam Road. In general, in life, I object to eminent domain, particularly for something like a sidewalk. And I got a little history with Acton and sidewalks. Had a long conversation with Paulina Nibby as she was running for selectman about her love of sidewalks and how she hated trees and how her aunt or her grandmother had been killed. I mean, it was, And so time went by, and there was a need, apparently, a burning need for a sidewalk down Route 27 from the post office up to 2A. I objected. Town overruled. You cut down trees, you put in the sidewalk. It was $1 million. And I swear to God, folks, every time I drive up and down 27 past that sidewalk, I see one of our citizens walking in the street next to the sidewalk. And this is going to sound terrible, but it's the God's honest truth. It always seems to be one of our Asian citizens or Asian residents. Either Chinese or Indian.
Sir, that is totally out of order.
Well, it may be out of order,
totally out of order.
But the point is, we're building sidewalks that people aren't using. We spend a lot of money to do it, and I'm going to suggest we'd be far better off educating people on which side of the street they ought to walk, facing the oncoming car that's going to kill you. As opposed to being blind or playing politically correct. Sooner or later, one of the people in this room, listening to me now, filled with horror, is going to run down one of these residents wearing dark clothing at night, walking on the wrong side of the road, with a sidewalk right over there. Please, folks, let's save the money. vote no, let's go home tonight.
Recognize the speaker at microphone number 3.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Peter Barry, Faulkner Hill Road. The town has a complete streets policy that has been voted to be one of the top 10 in the country. It encourages sidewalks, other means of traveling through town other than cars. Sidewalks promote public health by getting people out of their cars to exercise, by cleaning up the environment with less cars on the road, and they're also a big public safety boost by protecting people who want to traverse roads, particularly like High Street, that are extremely dangerous trying to walk on without sidewalks. So I would recommend a town meeting vote to approve this article. Also, I don't believe we're taking this easement by eminent domain. I think it's been part of, and maybe Mr. Bartle can talk to this, but it's my understanding, although the motion or the explanation mentions eminent domain, that's simply pro forma language. I think we've agreed with the developer that he will grant us this easement for the sidewalk without paying any money for it. Thank you.
I recognize the speaker at microphone number 1.
Danny Factor, 11 Davis Road, number A5. But I speak again not as a private citizen, but as a member of the Commission on Disabilities. And I do have to say that I'm very glad that the Commission on Disabilities did endorse this warrant item. I did not expect to have to speak on it, and I'm sort of outraged that this is even controversial and was only going to speak on it if it became so. The truth of the matter is we have a terrible problem of safety in town with people in disabilities, many who walk with canes, and have trouble maneuvering along the sides of roads. It's a terrible safety issue. We do need these sidewalks. We've supported the High Street sidewalks and other ones. We encourage people in town to be in touch with the sidewalk committee, to call in certain areas such as Gray Road, for example, where there are terrible hazards right now with people with disabilities walking along sidewalks. So please do support this measure. It's a safety measure. Lives are at stake. Thank you very much.
Recognize the speaker at microphone number 3.
Yes, my name is Bill Davis, and I live at 1 Conan Street in Acton. Our driveway physically interacts with High Street, and we look out at High Street all the time from our family room. And I can tell you that the new sidewalks that have just gone in have exponentially increased the walking traffic along the road. And I can tell you for a fact from commuting for 15 years, going to the commuter rail station, that High Street is extremely dangerous for walking in the street, no matter if you're walking on the correct side of the street or not. And sidewalks are a necessity in the whole strip between 27 and Powder Mill. Thank you.
Recognize the speaker at microphone number 4.
Yeah, Tammy Govea. I live at 442 Great Elm Way. I'd like to call the question.
Motion to cut off debate has been made and seconded. All those in favor of cutting off debate, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. We will now vote on the motion on Article 10. Again, this requires a 2/3 vote. I would ask that people turn their clickers on by pressing the orange button. And we will now open the voting window. Again, this requires a 2/3 majority. The voting window is open. I declare the voting window has now closed. So we will tabulate the vote. No, you have to go to work today. You don't get paid for a second. Oh, yes, I do. Janet, you're going to make the key essential motion here shortly? Yes. Okay, we have the vote tallied. The motion under Article 10 passes. 93% voted in favor. It achieves the required two-thirds majority. Ms. Adachi?
Yes, Mr. Moderator, I move to dissolve town meeting.
We have a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Thank you all very much. I will hope to see you again.